Zone.
In traversing the nebulous expanse of anime's cryptic dimensions and navigating the labyrinthine epochs of gaming's evolution, I, alone, venture into the abstruse, where enigma and the singularity of quantum concepts converge in a cosmic odyssey. I guess you could call me Voyager, and we are Zone.
Within the quantum kaleidoscope, anime's exquisite artistry and immersive universes of gaming intertwine. I unveil the beauty and depth where imagination dances with reality's pixels. I guess you could call me Fantasy. We are
Our Zone.
Yo, welcome back to another Sync Zone podcast. I'm your host, Zone, and today we have another episode. It's going to be with our host, Breezy. Our other host, Sai Sensei, could not make it today, unfortunately, due to some personal circumstances. So we will be seeing more of him next week. Look forward to that. But we also have a guest, screenwriter, Oodie. Welcome.
What up? What up?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
Of course, man. I know we chop it up sometimes, from time to time. And you also have a podcast, anime podcast. Did you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's called the Walkie Talkie Podcast. We mostly discuss all sorts of anime, pretty much the same thing as the Zone podcast here. Mostly Boruto, if I'm being honest, Naruto, Boruto topics. I do it with my friends, Kamui, and we usually have some guests on. We do it with Trippy as well. And Cam's there sometimes as well, and all sorts of fun and shenanigans ensue. It's more goofy than this podcast, which is more of a serious podcast from what I understand. But we like to have fun, a lot of lighthearted fun, and a lot of positive health and wellness topics as well, lots of education as well. So go over there if you want to see mostly me and Kamui butting heads, but a lot of fun discussions as well.
Yeah. Kamui is definitely a character. Really cool people. I think I've seen a few, maybe one or two of your podcasts, and so you guys have definitely been trying to go at it for a minute. I know we've sort of been on the same, sort of floating around the same area for a while now with the Sync Zone podcast, and we actually changed channels. So we have an official Sync Zone podcast channel now, which we are fortunate to also have Kamoy on as a guest. But yeah, we have this is going to be a special one for you guys today. It's hopefully you guys enjoy, you travelers out there enjoy this episode of the Sync Zone podcast, because we're going to talk a lot about a lot of things, or a good amount of things. And I think we wouldn't be doing it wouldn't be right if we didn't start off with Boruto, right? They had a big chapter to release, or a good setup chapter to release this past week. And I don't know who wants to start off with this information, this chapter, being that Boruto's monthly.
The first thing I want to say on this chapter that I think a lot of people need to understand, I'll just say it from like the screenwriter's perspective, there's something that I'm going to call here as nested storytelling. It's when you layer different elements of the narrative on top of one another to present more than one thing at the same time. So what's going on here with the whole Mitsuki dynamic? Spoiler for chapter 6, by the way, in case you haven't read it. So we get Mitsuki going after Boruto. The obvious narrative implication in the foreground is that Mitsuki is going after Boruto because he's upset that he's trying to kill Kawaki, who he views, based on omnipotence, to be his son. That's the foreground element, the element that you're supposed to focus on. And yes, it is true that's going on. At the same time, it's almost contradicted, but not really. At the same time, what's going on is we see in the prologue, the first 5 chapters of Two Blue Vortex, that Mitsuki's whole dynamic in Two Blue Vortex is assessing what his son even is. Fans have been asking this ever since the Mitsuki one-shot, where we first were introduced to this idea of a son, or Boruto being the son. But we see in the prologue of Two Blue Vortex, he's questioning, Kawaki, you're my son, aren't you? So whereas in chapter 6, and especially coming on with chapter 7 next month, we get obviously Mitsuki versus Boruto because Mitsuki wants to kill Boruto for trying to harm Kawaki, who he views as a son. That's going on really in the foreground, but the nested storytelling here, the main point is really Mitsuki's trying to confirm whether or not Kawaki is his son through this fight with Boruto, who may or may not be his son. He sees something through omnipotence. There's something going on here that makes him feel uncomfortable. So he's trying to confirm his own affirmations through this fight with Boruto.
Yeah, like I agree with you. Do you kind of see a situation in which Mitsuki might fight Boruto and then get like this innate feeling that he might be his son and not the enemy?
It depends what the son means to him, which we have yet to find out exactly. Going back to the one shot, you can make a few inferences. It could be based on memory. It could be based on, obviously, the sun is like the metaphor of it being light itself, and Boruto is a very bright character, very optimistic, positive character. That sort of changed within Two Blue Vortex, where he's not as bright. So I'm really interested to see how they flesh out this whole dynamic of what the sun means in the first place.
I think that's very interesting because something like we've seen with the Shinju clones, they have like this innate desire to gain knowledge and do their own thing, but they don't understand what those feelings are yet. And I think that's something that we see with Mitsuki, how he's starting to question what's going on with Kawaki not being his son. And then also how you were saying like what his pursuing of Boruto, kind of just getting his affirmations of what's actually going on. Even though on the surface it just seems like he wants to protect Kawaki.
You know, I think it's a very interesting dynamic that they've had with Kawaki and Mitsuki. You see, like from time to time, you'll see different, like a sort of that weird dynamic between Kawaki and Mitsuki, where you'll see Kawaki treating him a little differently, aggressive at points in times, as if Kawaki doesn't care. But personally, I've always had the idea that Mitsuki underneath Kawaki is that anti-hero-esque persona, right? So even though his intentions are in the right place, it's just perceived as if they're not, right? That he's sort of playing more of a shadow role because he knows that the ideas are sort of beyond the long term is sort of beyond him, and he's trying to basically, his goal is to eradicate the Otsutsuki. But even though we're still at a point to where we don't know if he has full understanding of the situation yet, of what to expect from, in the future, as far as like the Otsutsuki God, Shibai, and then of course the repercussions behind each of the actions. But I think that in this chapter, something that was kind of clarified, or at least kind of hinted, is that we saw in that panel where basically Kawaki's talking to Mitsuki, and he's like, he says something to Mitsuki, and Mitsuki, I think Mitsuki just kind of looks at him, but it seemed a little bit out of context when he said it. And I'm trying to look up the chapter now so I can reread it, but maybe I'll touch on that later on in the video. You can notate that or whatever. But essentially, that when he says what he says, there's sort of like a if you look at the emotion that they're trying to display, and maybe I'm looking too deeply into this, right? It's sort of either emotionless or it's one of sort of remorse, right? As if he's not intentionally trying to treat Miski like that, but he's trying to get him to a point. So what this meant to me essentially is she's trying to kind of get to him to a point similar to like how Shikamaru and Amato got to, right? To where like there are evidence that were such conflicting evidence that they basically had to come to a realization that their memories are in fact what's being altered. And so for Mitsuki as a character to get to this point, I think Kawaki understands is vital to treat Mitsuki a certain way. So his personality, because to him, if he's perceived as his son, if Kawaki is perceived as Mitsuki's son, right? He's putting full trust into his son, which means he's being influenced by that. And so, in a way, this could be a good direction for Mitsuki to come to a conclusion at some point in time when it's most convenient. And I think that's interesting setup that if that is the case. I don't know.
Yeah, I think like the panel that you're referring to is the one that when he was going outside of the house that he was in after he got done talking to Ada, and he was saying that Mitsuki was just a hangnail.
Yeah.
And I think when he said that, it's almost like he knows that Mitsuki is like a pawn in like some kind of bigger game, and he feels bad about it.
You know what?
Yeah, I think a very interesting aspect you were hitting on a little bit earlier was the like free will aspect, because Mitsuki is a clone. He's a clone of Orochimaru, and we've sort of got this theme all throughout Boruto. It's sort of a fleshed out version of the child and the son and child, the father and child dynamic that we see, father and son theme within Boruto of, well, Boruto doesn't want to ride Naruto's coattails. He's Naruto's son, yes, but in the same way that the audience, in my opinion, first looked at Boruto as Naruto's son rather than his own character, the characters in universe were doing the same thing. But Boruto is his own character. He's his own unique individual self with his own emotions, feelings, personality, etc., etc. And I think this theme has been explored throughout not just Boruto, but then we see with Mitsuki, he's a clone of Orochimaru. And we get this even further on within the Mitsuki desertion arc or Mitsuki retrieval arc in the anime, whatever you want to call it. With the fabrications, you see characters like Sekie, who are just fabrications made by Kara, the doctor, or whoever. But we see within that arc that they do have their own personality. They are their own selves. And then, especially with Lord Q at the end of the arc as well, then you get going onwards to the Kara arc, you have Kashin Koji, a clone of Jiraiya. But very clearly, he's his own character. He may have Jiraiya's emotions, or Jiraiya's memories at least, but he definitely doesn't have Jiraiya's personality. He has his own goals, his own motives. And I think to call him a clone of Jiraiya is almost insulting, because he is his own self, and the Boruto series has gone out of its way to show you that. So for Boruto to be his own person, it's interesting as well because Boruto's changed over these past 3 years. So he's not the Boruto that we used to know. He's almost a new character entirely. It's like a thing in philosophy. I forget exactly what it's called, but like every 10 years, you're not you anymore. You're not the same you were 10 years ago. So can you even be held accountable for actions you committed in the past, statutes of limitations sort of thing? And sort of like this philosophical idea to where, can you even sentence someone to life in prison or for imprisonment for longer than 10 years because they're not even the same person in 10 years? So how can you hold that person accountable when that person doesn't even exist anymore? It's interesting ideas like that I think are very interesting for Boruto to explore.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. It reminds me of when we seen like the Sasuke Shinju clone. He was kind of questioning like who is he? And we know that the Shinju clones are based on the person that, well, at least three of them. We don't exactly know who Jura is yet, but we know at least three of them are based on the person whose chakra they absorbed from the divine when they made like their own little mini divine tree. And we've seen like the Sasuke Shinju clone kind of questioning like who are we? Like they draw obviously somewhat from the person that they're based on, but it's interesting that you were saying before, like with Kashin Koji, with Mitsuki, with Boruto, like they're based on other people or derived from other people, but the series so far is kind of going the route of having those clones, I guess, for lack of better word for it, seeking their own will and doing their own thing. So I guess it's interesting to see where the series decides to take it from there and what the Shinju clones actually decide to do once they actually gain some knowledge of what they are or decide what they want their purpose to be.
I think that's a very good point. I think the Shinju clones are going to be the next evolution of this theme in order to really flesh it out. They're going to develop it in a very interesting way because Matsuri is not Moegi, in the same way Hidari is not Sasuke, in the same way Jura is not whoever he is, whether it's Kawaki, Jigen, Ishiki. People are still debating about that online. In the latest chapter, you could argue there's more evidence for there to be Ishiki, but nothing's been confirmed necessarily yet. But the point is, to call them clones of these characters is based on part one of the Boruto series. I'm going to assume this theme is going to be continued forwards. Based on part one, it would be insulting to refer to them as clones of who came before them. In the same way, Boruto is not Naruto. He's not riding the coattails. You cannot say the same thing about these Shinju clones. They're new, unique, individual existence who just came into existence, and as such are learning, evolving, forming their own experiences, their own memories. They have their own personality that they were born with. It's also going back to nature versus nurture. Well, how much of that is nurture? We still don't know that with.
I like that you addressed some of the more philosophical questions that people have asked from the dawn of time when it pertains to identity. When it pertains to clones and whether or not clones are individuals, or just replicants of the same person. Even like I think when it pertains to like modern day cloning with animals, and certain products, you'll see where they don't exactly have the exact same person, but they have like it's like a strand of DNA that's basically able to replicate the physical aspects of that person, but not necessarily everything internally is that person. When I say internally, I mean from a physiological standpoint as well as from a psychological standpoint, right? And so when it pertains to those aspects alone, I think we have to kind of understand that experiences in environments can of course alter whether it's clones or just a regular individual. I think that kind of provides some cause to identity, and that kind of defines what their identity. And so I think when it pertains to Jiraiya, I think he's a very, very interesting case, right? Because he is in fact a clone of Jiraiya that we know for sure, but how he's a clone of Jiraiya is very interesting to me, right? He has the body, but he doesn't necessarily have the same experience, at least from his or not experience per se, but the same. He's not the same mentally as Jiraiya. Oh, did we lose a person? I think we lost him temporarily. Pop back in here. I'll watch him.
Yeah.
But for Jiraiya, I think that his experience is a lot different than Jiraiya's. Sorry, Kashin Koji's experience is a lot different than Jiraiya's, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and exit out Discord. he's witnessed Otsutsuki's. He knows a lot more than Jiraiya did. So ultimately, he is a different individual than Kashin Koji is a different individual um than Jiraiya. That gives him his sense of identity, I think. Right. So that's very interesting to me because Effie still one of the more interesting aspects to that is whether or not he still has Jiraiya's memories, right? So if he still has Jiraiya's memories, he's able to kind of focus on them, right? I think that that might kind of alter his character a little bit more, if he decides to act on those memories, right? Now that I feel like that would all have to just depend on the writing aspects, but I feel like it's kind of it provides him the perfect um scenario given that these god trees, these evolved god trees, these personified god trees, which have evolved from the Ten Tails as well as Code's DNA, and it was I'm glad that it was finally clarified within this chapter that when it pertains to Code's DNA, this was actually a cause of Code's karma, right? Which had Ishiki's DNA, right? So years ago, I predicted that Ishiki may make a return. A lot of people have speculated that the main the main God Tree guy, forgetting his name, he
Jira?
yeah, he resembles Ishiki. And now that may or may not be true, right? So taking that into consideration that it may or may not be true, um, sure, right? But the fact that there are four of them at the moment and the god tree is seemingly the Ten Tails are seemingly gone, and Code's now, far kind of distanced away from them. Um, it seems most likely that maybe a majority of Ishiki's DNA may have found its way to kind of resonate within the Ten Tails. Being that chakra, all chakra is connected. Right now, these god trees, right, which may it kind of I think for me it kind of presents like a whether or not you know Ishiki will reincarnate. I don't think that'll be the case, but I think he'll have a lot of maybe Ishiki characteristics. Like we saw a cube, right?
Yeah.
That was very interesting, right? And that's something that I think Ishiki kind of I don't exactly know how. I don't think no one knows exactly how um they decide to come up with their abilities, right? It could be a fucking triangle, right? But as far as like, being a square, I think that may be something that Kawaki does instinctually. Like that's maybe something he's, grown to understand. And this is all speculation, by the way. None of this is confirmed, right? But I find it interesting that he did choose the cube. And then we could say that's something that that move set specifically requires, but for me, it's just interesting that he decided to choose that. I was very, very, very small to nitpick on that aspect, but um, I definitely think that these beings that are trying to establish an identity, right? I think that's going to be something that we may see in Kashin Koji's case in the future, and I think because his previous identity, is linked to Jiraiya, he may have a better chance to overcome that situation if that circumstance does happen. And if that circumstance does happen, then I think that'll put him in a better position to fight these god personified god trees from a um strategic standpoint. I forget exactly because they were called something specifically um in like I think chapter 3 or 4, I think. I'm forgetting the name for that. I don't know if you guys would remember. I definitely forgot.
The Shinju?
Are they just Shinju?
I think so, yeah. Well, based on the obviously translation to be the god tree, which is weird because I hate to refer to them as god trees because they do not look like trees at all, obviously. So,
Right.
like if they eat an Otsutsuki, where's the fruit going to bloom? Is my question.
That's what, so me and Breezy were actually talking about this. Breezy, do you remember this conversation? BB the Breezy, are you with us? Or maybe experiencing some audio issues? Possibly. That's probably the case. It's trying, but basically, the what we're essentially talking about is like, what if these fruits, right? Like there are different types of fruits. Like and where I'm going with this is gonna probably is gonna be interesting, but essentially, like, what if the potency of these fruits kind of also evolves because of these Shinju or these personified god trees, right? And what if these fruits are now they're now going to probably be birthed within them as like a heart, right? Or a way to kind of kill them or absorb them, right?
Okay.
So as far as like maybe Code's transformation or evolution in the future, maybe he ends up absorbing one of these personified god guys, god trees, and that's how he reaches his evolution. But I feel like we may get another Madara moment or Black Zetsu moment where, if that is the case, then we may get another Ishiki. That's a possibility. I don't know. Preferably I would not like that to happen. I would just like Code to be to actually kind of step into his role as the threat at that point in time. But as far as like these, I definitely see the potential for plot purposes here with these personified god trees. I like the fact that they're evolved, and there's a possibility of them evolving further to through the development of seeking identity, and I do like that aspect.
It's interesting because to our knowledge, the Shinju should just be fully evolved. Like there should be no further evolution for the god tree, again, to our knowledge. So I'm wondering, what will they even evolve into? Will they follow the Otsutsuki's path to become a like tree that transcends reality?
No, I honestly, well, here's the thing, because do we know where Otsutsuki's are from?
No.
Right. So what if it's like a cycle, right? Like a cycle through chakra, right? Like the Otsutsuki's are possibly it's like this I called it he chimed out again. There's a like a nebulous cloud, right? There's a cycle of the universe, right? So what if the Otsutsuki god is sort of like a nebulous cloud where he's sort of like a cycle of universal cause for chakra. I could definitely see that maybe being the case. And if that is the case, what if like maybe these are just instances that are kind of created. Now I did call them like parasites in the past, which I was correct on that point. I think in chapter like 74, 75. I want to say either Amato or Kawaki called the Otsutsuki parasites, and I was predicting that for a good amount of time. But I mean, what are your since we're here now, what are your predictions for the chapter?
Well, first of all, I think it's probably both, honestly, but I think it's Amado who first says it officially. Back during the Kashin Koji versus Jigen fight, when Amado's talking to Naruto and Sasuke in the room, he's explaining a whole lore dump. I think that's where he calls them parasites.
Possibly at that point, yeah. Possibly, yeah. I think you may be correct on that front. Although I feel like this was like a topic of like debate, even on like I feel like on channels like Naruto Explains, where he does primarily Naruto board content. He was like they're like he waited a while before like announcing, like saying like, oh, like they're, you know he mentioned like someone in the chapter said they were parasites, and I was like, well, obviously they're kind of parasites. They just based off of their behavior, based off of what they do. Their psychological behavior and their instinctual behavior. They're they're parasites, right? But as far as like when you put something that is so intertwined with the universe and chakra out there, and you give it the characteristics of a parasite, I feel like things like the God Tree clones are very likely. It's not something that I don't think is something that to be extremely shocked about. But I do like that aspect of them because it kind of we still haven't seen Momoshiki in a while. I'm waiting to see how he's doing. I don't know if he'll chime in next week, if he'll get to that point, unless next week is basically the start of that war, not the war of the destruction of the leaf, right? In which case we may see him, because that would mean Kawaki would come back to reality. I'd assume he'd heal pretty fast, being that he's an Otsutsuki, so he may snap out of whatever Mitsuki put him in pretty fast, I'd assume. But I do like the fact that he didn't bite him while he was in Sage mode. Because if he bit him in Sage mode, I'd be like, and he got up next chapter, I'd be like, wait a minute, didn't he like bite him in Sage mode? Like, he's an Otsutsuki, like he should be affected a little longer, right? I feel like that should be the case, but yeah, that's not the case. I don't think that'll be a concern that we have to worry about next chapter if there is a possible interaction with Kawaki, Mitsuki, and Boruto. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
I think my thoughts really depend on one very, very specific detail. So assuming, for the sake of this argument, let's assume hypothetically, Jura is 100% confirmed to be Ishiki. Assuming that's the case, because we did see the cube, but the cube did have a slightly different design from Ishiki or Kawaki's cubes. So do we think that Jura has access to Kawaki's Daikokuten, or Daikokuten in general? If so, that will inform whether or not Jura can access Naruto, his target, through Kawaki, or if he can just do it by himself. Does he need Kawaki for Naruto, or can he essentially do what Ishiki did during the Baryon mode fight, to where he summoned Naruto, or he summoned Kawaki to him based on the chakra through Naruto's hand?
That is a very good point. I think you might be onto something.
I think because he hasn't done it yet, he can't do it. Because otherwise, based on his will, he wants to eat Naruto. The moment he thought about eating Naruto, instead of even saying he wants to eat Naruto, he would just use Daikokuten and just pull him out of there and just eat him.
Yeah, but yeah, I do see what you're saying there. Now, I think something that should be apparent in this thought process is whether or not the that God Tree clone, what was his name, Jura, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not Jura knows that Kawaki has Ishiki's karma, right? Or has a connection to Ishiki's karma. Because if for some reason he finds out that, Kawaki has, access to Ishiki's karma. Now, I don't think that was ever discussed. I don't exactly remember if that was kind of discussed amongst the personified god trees, but that's something that I'd have to assume that there would have to be some type of development when it pertains to him understanding that, okay, yeah, this is the case, right? That way, if that were the case, he could just like boop, snap his fingers or something and be in the guy Daikokoden dimension, right?
Exactly.
So there definitely has to be some type of barrier before he could do that. You know, and I personally like. I don't know when it pertains to like, Sasuke and Naruto. I don't think that. I feel like they're there specifically just for the development of our primary cast, the primary characters. But as far as like them coming back and being able to influence the plot, I don't think they will. Well, the Sasuke guy, what's his name? Hitadori?
Hidari.
Hidari, yeah. Hidari. He, of course, I think will serve a role for Isara's development, but it'll be interesting to kind of see his development. But I don't think he'll have much character development when it pertains to Sasuke's growth. I think he may take another route. We may see evil Sasuke again, but it may be through a more philosophical lens, if that makes sense. I haven't really given that too much thought, but as far as like, I guess, Sasuke and Naruto still having a pivotal role, I'm not sure if they will still. I don't personally. I don't believe they will still come back. I definitely think that's just something they're having there, not only for the fans, but for them to kind of have something to progress upon the main characters. Of course. What are your thoughts on that?
Well,
Yo, are you able to hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, my bad. We had a like 2-second power outage here, so it messed up my whole setup. But Oodie, going off of what you're saying, I think it was super interesting. Going off of what you were saying and what Zone was saying about the Ishiki situation, where we got like some confirmation this chapter where some of at least Ishiki's chakra was involved in the making of the Shinju clones. I think it's super interesting because I lean more on the main Shinju clone, Jura, probably does have access to the Daikokuten dimension. And I think like by him having access to the Daikokuten dimension would go it would be a better route for the story because it raises the stakes a whole lot, especially for Kawaki's end, because he wouldn't just be able to just have Naruto and Hinata stay idle in the Daikokuten dimension. If Jura is able to find out where that dimension is and just pull them out.
Right. The only thing that I could see there, it's sort of how they did it with Kawaki and Jigen, to where Jigen could just teleport to Kawaki at any time. Of course, we know that Naruto was there to protect him. In this case, I don't know if Kawaki can be there to protect Naruto, especially considering he's unconscious and considering the threat level here, how these clones are just so much stronger than what I'm assuming Kawaki's at this current level. And it's just, in my opinion, with this being in the Daikokuten dimension, it just sort of shifts the whole dynamic of everything. So I think it's possible to where he could have access to Daikokuten, but maybe not the quote-unquote coordinates or wherever Naruto is. In the same way that you can have access to Kamui's dimension, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to teleport exactly in the same place within Kamui as someone else.
Right. I think that makes sense. And then going off a little bit about that, have you ever heard of the expression like I love you so much I could just eat you up or love you to death? That's kind of like that's kind of like the vibe that I get from the Shinju clones, especially with them wanting to go and target and kill the person that they're based off loves. And going like way back in the series, it kind of harkens back to when Ada drove Cold away, and the final thing he said before he left, he wouldn't be able to decide if he became an Otsutsuki, whether he wanted to love her or whether he wanted to kill her. And so we got the irony here that these Shinju clones, which are made from Cold's own chakra mixed with Ishiki's karma and chakra, they don't know how to recognize this feeling that they're feeling. They're just like, okay, there's this person that pops up in my head. I just feel like eating them. So I think that's very interesting.
What's interesting, a lot of people like to say that it's the person they love the most is their target. I don't know if that's necessarily the case because they seem to have all their memories. For example, Matsuri is able to literally, apparently physically see through Moegi's eyes right now as she's in the tree to see Chocho, Inojin, and Shikadai are just standing there looking at Moegi. How could she even know that? She has to be able to see that. So it's not just her memory of Konohamaru. She's able to literally look at Konohamaru. And so I'm wondering if it's not necessarily the one they love, but maybe there's something else going on here, because obviously Ishiki wouldn't love Naruto. It could be someone they have the strongest attachment to, or it could be even based on a whim. It's definitely interesting. I want to learn more about why they choose their target specifically.
Same.
I feel like it kind of creates like a paradox. Them being, like I said, just personified versions of course, of the individual they absorbed in the God tree, but and the Tintails. But as far as like them choosing a target, I don't know if they have any other context to add, or maybe it's just possible that they are learning, because the Tintails doesn't really have a personality, so they probably have more of a Tintails identity, at least mentally, to kind of start off with, that they're basically starting as like children, but they have the capacity of an adult. So it's almost like, in most sci-fi worlds where they kind of start off, you'll have clones. They don't know they're a clone until um until they see like the real version. And so maybe it's possible that they that maybe seeing or knowing that they are a clone may alter their outlook and aspects and decisions. Um, or maybe that's just completely left field, and they just want to kind of go based off of um whatever Jira. I keep calling him Jira. The guy looks like a Shiki. Go based off of what he's saying, because he has the most amount um of knowledge when it pertains to the goal that should be obtained, and he has more of the what's the word I'm looking for. Uh, he has a better sense of self, right? So if that would make sense. Not It would make sense to me if he had absorbed more of Ishiki's karma, um, and that if that were and that's why he is the leader. That's why he's more self-aware. That's how that would make sense to me. How he is more self-aware. Otherwise, now the fact that like he's, more, he seems to have that sense of leadership and be more self-aware. Um, I really don't exactly know what to take from the character, other than the fact that he may have absorbed more of Ishiki's um, identity than the rest. And maybe each of them, since they were split into four, I don't know if there'll be more of them added, but since they're split into four, maybe they each have different parts of Ishiki's karma, as kind of explained and kind of emphasized in this chapter 6 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex.
Yep.
Chapter 6.
It was sort of course, mentioned that they are they are basically a result of Code's karma, which had Ishiki's DNA. So that kind of added a bit of context for me. The fact that they kind of they had Boruto kind of talk about that that sort of confirmed a little bit for me, just kind of pushed the plot a little bit further on that side of the film. But yeah, that's kind of all I got. I think that's what most people would kind of say on that front. But what are your guys' opinions on?
This is where it actually gets interesting. So, sort of to correct something you said, the white karma seal does not have any of Ishiki's DNA in it. In fact, that's why it's the white karma seal. It's considered a dud because it's not able to extract. Why? Because it doesn't have DNA to extract in the first place. What it does have is the chakra. And so this actually confirms something to us because we know that Code was able to split it up using his claw marks, which is a Shinjutsu from Shibai. So you could say also there's some Shibai genetics maybe within there as well. That's interesting as well. That's a side thing. But more interestingly, the claw marks are made in part using Code's blood, which obviously would have his genetics in it. So obviously they're transformed using Code's genetics to some degree. But the only reach they have to Ishiki would be Ishiki's chakra. And this confirms to us that genetic material is passed down through chakra, or it's contained within chakra itself. And so the quality of chakra we know can change depending on various factors. We know Sasuke's chakra has been described as cold, whereas Naruto's described as warm. We know the Sharingan can see chakra's color. We know some chakra can be considered heavier than others. There's a lot of different factors that go into the quality of chakra. Hashirama seemed to have more vibrant chakra. We know that the Uzumakis have a longer lifespan. Kabuto confirmed that. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. So I'm curious how or why chakra can contain genetic material in the first place, considering it's the accumulation of both the mind and the body or spirit. But it seems to be something that also exists within the world, which is why you have sage chakra as well. That's natural energy. So I'm curious how genetic materials pass down, if it's ever lost, if it's ever gained somewhere. Where exactly does that play into chakra itself?
Yeah, you definitely said a lot when it pertains to whether or not there is a difference between DNA and chakra, right? And I think that's something that part one definitely clarified that within chakra is some essence of DNA, right? Now for code's case, there wasn't like a he didn't exactly have his physical DNA, right? But in Momoshiki's case, he was able to kind of add his essence, right, his DNA, um, through Boruto. So that's sort of how I kind of gauge the understanding that there within chakra, from an individual, there is still genetic material, right? Whether that material is effective or not, I think there are factors to consider when understanding whether or not um, they're dormant or active, right?
Yeah.
So within Code's case, I think they lie dormant, right? And that's pretty obvious. But when it pertains to certain situations, environments, circumstances, right? I think in this case, we may see that there is, in fact, a possibility where, because of um, the genetic material within that chakra, it was passed on, and it's what influenced it's able to influence other forms of chakra, like the tintels, right? So I don't know if I necessarily agree with the whole idea that Code didn't have Ishiki's DNA. I just think they lie dormant, right? So that's something that I don't think has been completely um flat out said, yes or no, within the Boruto manga, but I definitely think it's a fact that we've seen pretty clearly within the last few chapters of especially within Boruto Blue Vortex and the last chapters of Boruto. What is it called? What was Boruto Part 1 called again?
Naruto Next Generations.
Next Generations, right? So yeah, that's why I know a lot of people subscribe to the whole idea that there is no DNA within every karma. Ko didn't have Ishiki's DNA within it. That's why he didn't. We don't sense like we don't see Ishiki within code. And I don't know. I feel like there's still something there, right? Whether it's dormant or not.
Yeah, branching off both of your ideas real quick. Didn't like way back in Naruto Shippuden during the war arc, didn't Madara absorb chakra, stage chakra directly from Hashirama and grew like a whole Hashirama face on his chest? Or am I remembering that wrong?
No, that's
No.
right. He
So
already
wouldn't that
had the head on his chest. He just was able to access Sage natural energy through the head on his chest because that was his Hashirama cells, the DNA that he stole from Hashirama in their first fight. When he bit off a chunk of Hashirama's flesh, he implanted that into him, and that later grew into a head just because of Hashirama cell weirdness. But the head itself was already there outside of nature energy or Sage mode.
okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, I don't exactly remember it growing, but I do know that it was there. I feel like it did go Sage mode. So didn't it go Sage mode? Or am I
It
just
did.
Yeah.
okay,
So once he absorbed Sage mode or natural energy from Hashirama, the Sage mode markings went on to Hashirama's head on Madara's body. So then Madara was in Sage mode, but Madara could be both outside or in a Sage mode, regardless of the head, I think. Really, the reason he did it was for the Rinnegan, because he needed Hashirama's chakra for that, because Hashirama is a reincarnation of Ashura, and he's Indra, which when you combine the two, you get the Rinnegan.
yeah, I think it's more of an aesthetic choice. The head, but it could have just been like replaced, and kind of just have his chest there. But yeah, I don't know. I do think it was interesting. I don't know if he would have kind of taken on that Sage mode form differently. If he didn't have the chest, I don't know. I guess there's no way to kind of tell. Um, I don't think it matters ultimately, but sorry, it is a good point that you kind of brought that up, Breezy. Yeah, yeah.
What's really interesting here is the God tree itself, not the Shinju, the divine clawgrams or whatever you want to call them, but the God tree. It's stated by Amado to be able to record and sort of crystallize all life on the planet. And so that would include genetic material, that would include everything, the memory of everything. All that genetic material is crystallized within the fruit. And so clearly, there has to be something retained within chakra itself in order to contain that memory for it to be recorded from the God tree in the first place. Because even Ishiki said that he himself was recorded because he lived on the planet. We don't know if he died on the planet because we don't know if the realm where he died, where Baryon mode happened, we don't know if that was actually on Earth or not. It's like 50-50 with that. It's up in the air. So whether he died on Earth, we don't know. Same with Jigen. We don't know if Jigen's dimension was actually on Earth or in a different dimension. Me and Kamui go back and forth on that. So we don't know if Jigen died on Earth either. But at the very least, Ishiki/Jigen lived on Earth. And so his genetic material was recorded into the God tree, which in this case would just be the 10 tails.
Mm.
Yeah, and I mean, from what we know so far, like the ten tails is essentially like a mass of like infinite chakra, right? Like
Limitless, yeah.
like limitless chakra, and it's weird that you have different like you the ten tails that was in that Jigen was basically controlling or maintaining. That one was a adolescent, right? It was basically not fully developed Tintels, but they never explain like the difference from what I recall. They never really went into the main difference in the or differences between either or.
Actually, this is very interesting. So, sort of elaborating on that, there's no way to tell which one is stronger or if they're the same strength. We don't know the strength level of Tintails itself, whether it's the same or if it's different at all, if it can be. But assuming it is different, we still don't. It's a complete shot in the dark. We don't know at all which one would be stronger because they're two completely different Tintails, two completely different backgrounds. We don't know enough about this new adolescent one in order to assess its strength level. What we do know is some information about the old Tintails. First of all, we could calculate some feats or whatever if we really wanted to get into that. We don't necessarily have to do that though. The more interesting aspect though is the fact that it was considered by Kurama, who has obviously the most chakra of any tailed beast, to have a limitless chakra, specifically natural energy, the Senjutsu chakra. That's not normal chakra for ninjutsu. That's natural energy that's all across the world itself. Where I'm going with this is characters such as Obito and later on Madara absorbed the Tintails. They were sort of like losing their mind from the chakra of the Tintails, which is also interesting considering Obito and later Sasuke got one Rinnegan because two would have drove them mad, quote unquote. So you could say a Tintails is about the equivalent of a Rinnegan's worth of chakra, which is also interesting. Another interesting factor here, even though he absorbed the Tintails and had two Rinnegan, he was just fine. Madara was just fine with all that chakra in himself, but he started to blow up literally from the Earth chakra going into him. And the Earth chakra didn't all go. There was still more Earth chakra to go into him, or he probably would have blown up if he got all the Earth chakra. So that tells you the Earth chakra is several Tintails worth of chakra on Earth. And so if that Tintails itself was on Earth to record that chakra, possibly to take some of the chakra in, considering it had limitless natural energy, maybe natural energy is inherent to Earth itself. Maybe this new Tintails doesn't have any natural energy at all. Maybe it just has normal chakra, which means it would have way less chakra. That means you could make a pretty good argument that the Tintails on Earth had far more chakra because it was able to absorb or record the chakra of Earth, which seems to be far, far more than a normal Tintails would have naturally in the first place.
You're saying which Tintels had far more chakra?
The one on Earth, the one from Shippuden.
Oh, I see. Okay.
We
That's
don't know
extremely
anything about the new Tintails from Boruto. It's possible it was on a planet that had even more chakra. We know that Kinshiki describes Earth as having I forget exactly what it is, but like a curvature of 16, a space curvature of 16, based on the abnormal amounts of chakra is how it's described. So you could make the inference that Earth has more chakra than most planets, an abnormally high amount of chakra, you could make the case. So it's most likely the Earth Tintails was stronger or had more chakra than this new Tintails. But again, we just don't know anything about the new Tintails other than the fact that it's an adolescent.
Yeah, one thing I hope that the series does explore more is where because Sasuke even mentioned it like early in the manga and the anime as well. When he saw the Ten Tails, he was like, where on earth like did he get that thing? Like we have no idea where the other Ten Tails even came from. And like I hope that little bit, like that backstory to that kind of gets explored a little bit later. I'm not sure if it will though. But I find what you said about the earth having an enormous amount of chakra extremely interesting, especially considering the very opening chapter of Two Blue Vortex when or not the opening chapter, I believe it was the second chapter when Boruto showed off his new technique, which was the Rasengan Uzahiko, and that used the Earth's rotation itself as its energy source. So I find that extremely interesting.
No, I like that. Maybe how we're looking at how they're utilizing chakra is completely different, right? So maybe like one I do like how you kind of correlated that, but as far as like maybe their use of chakra is just different, right? How maybe the one Tintails has the capacity and ability to um, kind of use the nature itself as opposed um, to kind of basically um, absorbing that chakra and then dispersing it, right? So I guess, and I when it pertains to like Uzuhiko, I don't think we necessarily got the mechanics of it as far as what type of technique it is. We'd assume it's some type of sage. I'd assume it's some type of sage technique um, to kind of emulate more of a shinjutsu. Um, but as far as like the technique itself, I think that that may kind of play a role later on, and it may be the difference that we may just be looking at how the Tintails, their use of the chakra um, is kind of different. The large Tintails did have a massive chakra. We did know that for sure. It had like a large mass when Naruto tried to, of course, observe, sense it. It was basically infinite amount of chakra. It was either I want to say, yeah, I want to say it was either Naruto or the Nine Tails. One of them did. I feel like it was Naruto though, if I remember correctly, back to Shippuden. Um, but as far as like, I don't know, it's kind of weird because they still just haven't explained the main differences. We're all still kind of speculating at the moment as far as its use case. Um, how the difference between the two, but in some animals are very proficient when they're younger, right? So they have so that may play a role too, um as far as like I don't know because we've never encountered the circumstance, so I couldn't see that either. um
We actually on that we know that Hagoromo split up the Ten Tails. Obviously, the Akatsuki brought the Ten Tails back together, but it wasn't the full Ten Tails. You didn't have all of the Eight Tails or nearly all of the Nine Tails chakra within it, and the Nine Tails contains like half of all of the Ten Tails chakra. And so this Ten Tails was inherently, from its conception in the war, like half as strong as it could have been in the first place. And so with that, you could say in one regard, it's stronger than normal Ten Tails, and the other regard, it's weaker than a normal Ten Tails. So it's really up in the air whether or not this Ten Tails is stronger or weaker than the other one. We just have no idea. I will mention, though, two very interesting factors here with this. The Ten Tails is stated, I forget whether it's in the manga or a data book, but it's stated somewhere that the Ten Tails created the world or the universe. I forget. It created something. You could say that's a retcon or a mistranslation. I don't know. It's out there, though. It's somewhere. It's sort of brushed under the rug. It's very interesting, though.
I feel like that might have been like some type of uh chapter text from like Kishimoto, just kind of just like writing his text kind of free. uh how like I guess for this chapter it said like next chapter is going to be like the bet uh you know Mitsuki versus Boruto, right? At least some of the chapters. I don't know if that was official, the official chapter here on Viz, but I did see that on another site. So I'd assume because Kishimoto would do that a lot, especially in Shippuden, where he'd write like notes at the end of the chapter. So that may be the case, or it may be a retcon. I couldn't say at the moment because I don't have the chapter pulled up in front of me. But yeah, I feel like as far as like chakra goes in the evolution, I do like the idea that their potential for evolution is, I think it's if not it's as good as the Otsutsuki, or they may evolve, being that Otsutsukis are like parasites, they may evolve into a Otsutsuki type. This may be how Otsutsukis are born. Or at least a case like this, right? We you know, of course, we wouldn't get a code who's able to kind of have his DNA embedded with the karma, and Ishiki essence within that karma embedded, you know, or Otsutsuki's essence within that karma embedded into a Tintel's, and of course they'd be personified through, you know, certain people. Now, you know, um, I don't know. I don't know. It's all very interesting. It's all very interesting. I definitely think that as far um as you know the direction that this is heading, I think it's very cool, very interesting. Um I do I do like the idea that I or the possibility that there may be a fight in the village next week because Boruto and Mitsuki they're still going at it, right? And we got to find out how strong Mitsuki is. I do like that parallel. Me and Breezy were talking about the end of the chapter, Holly. It was basically like I think a panel setup of like Boruto looking at Mitsuki, and he was menacing as fuck, right? And he's looking at Boruto as if he's like Kawaki, right? As if Kawaki, none of the Shinjutsu, the omnipotence didn't happen, right? Um, that's how he would be looking at Kawaki. I think it's going to be very interesting as far as like, you know, that's why there's two very important things in this chapter that kind of push me to the idea that, you know, at some point in time, Kawaki may be going, he may be trying to fight Kawaki, but it may not be as expected, because I think when that time comes where when Kawaki does come to that point to where he knows he should be fighting Kawaki, he may not want to fight, or at least him and Kawaki may not want to fight each other as bad, because I think again I believe that Kawaki may be trying to assist the people um to kind of basically get out of this, um, to be able to get out of this because he's going to need help at the end of the day. And that's probably the intention behind it, that he knows he's going to need allies that can, you know, be fully aware of the situation. Um, so different, a lot of interesting dynamics to kind of play here. Um, and you know, I it's all very cool. It would it'd be interesting to me if basically, you know, the what's it, the time skip event in chapter or episode 1 of Boruto, not Two Vortex. I'm talking about Naruto Next Generations. If that were to occur soon, I made kind of correlations, like predictions behind, you know, um, it basically the plot kind of resembling in a lot of physical aspects of, or to kind of resembling certain games in particular, um, as well as basically, you know, Amato probably being aware that um, or possibly planning this far still, right? Is he like my 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 idea is that maybe Amato may have understood the course of time and understood the possibilities of things, and I feel like he's still a big mystery. It's even though he still it was under the influence of omnipotence, I feel like he may have predicted that this is a possibility. I just feel like that's the type of guy Amato is, even though he, um, you know, he did manage to kind of realize that, you know, he is under omnipotence and kind of prevent that. I don't think I feel like he's one of those. He's like he's still a Trojan horse, right? He's essentially, um, you know, he's come to the realization that Kawaki is the one actually, in fact, the one that has that is his design, which I found very interesting. Um, so yeah, it's all. I don't know what are your future thoughts on the whole? What do you where do you foresee us going in the future? What do you I don't know. Either one of you guys can take the question.
The time skip idea is very interesting. Do you think we'll get that at the end of this first arc of Two Blue Vortex, or do you think they're going to save that for a future arc?
Well, I sort of, I'm not gonna lie, I did my theory before Two Blue Vortex was that before, basically there was going to be a plan to where, Ada was going to get to village, and a lot of that, some of it was true, a lot of it didn't come to fruition. But we did get Kashin Koji training Boruto, which I anticipated. And I definitely think he's gonna serve a huge plot. He's gonna be a huge plot device, specifically for Boruto's development, being that he is, of course, in control of Momoshiki. But as far as the future, so I initially predicted that there would be a war there'd be sort of like a war code with attack, right? Which that did happen, so that happened as well. I guess the next possible steps would be the confrontation between Boruto and Kawaki. Boruto's back at the village. The time skip has happened, and some people predicted that there may be another time skip, which, episode or chapter 1 of Two Blue Vortex, I was all for it. I didn't think that was not a possibility, but being that, where we're at now as far as development wise goes, I definitely think that, the whole Mitsuki confrontation may be serving a purpose, not only for development for Mitsuki, but it may be serving a greater purpose, being that he is a sage. Now I know we haven't put respect on sages in years, but he's I think he's got some redeeming to do, maybe some questioning to do, to be a factor in the development for the plot, and to understand that his perspective is ultimately wrong, to kind of get that direction, and that there's going to be some type of confrontation, some type of battle that's going to really put the village Konoha at risk, and then our anti-hero Kawaki will come in and try to protect the village, right? Even in chapter 1, you could see Kawaki protecting civilians. Like, what the fuck? He's over here protecting civilians, right? I don't know. I don't necessarily think that he wants to do that or cares to do that, but he knows he needs to do that to present a certain image, right? So him killing Boruto or trying to kill Boruto in the next chapter, I don't think he's going to. I don't think the battle is ultimately. We're probably going to see this. He has sort of like a Sasuke part 1, part 2 type of persona or personality going on, to where there's minimal dialogue, internal dialogue within Kawaki. But I think we'll definitely see that in the future, as far as like, what he's thinking now, what he's been thinking, and why his seemingly character change. Even though he's still calling like Kawaki names, he's still kind of, acting like Kawaki. There has to have been some development within those 3 years that I think that's definitely going to show forward in the next chapter. So we're going to see, I think, when Kawaki does snap out of whatever this trance is that Mitsuki put him in, the snakes, right? Or the poison or whatever, right? He's essentially going to I'm hoping that battle does happen, essentially, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a good chance of it happening, and that would, previously I thought that would lead him to Kashin Koji, but Kashin Koji's already here. But I definitely think that there could be a Jogon on the front. That is the next best thing to showcase, his control, not only with the Jogon but with Momoshiki. And now we haven't seen Momoshiki since pre-time skip, right? So there has to be some type of, maybe Momoshiki may be awakened because of karma. Maybe he's been asleep, right? But maybe he'll be reawakened because of the karma's resonating, right? I definitely think that may be a possibility. If that is the case, in which case we may see Momoshiki taking over Boruto again, maybe for a slight second, or maybe he's been able to kind of control how how long Momoshiki actually does come out when he does come out. Previously, I also thought that Momoshiki would be the one to kill Sasuke. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and I'm interested to find out like how has Boruto been keeping him at bay. How is he not used the Jogan in forever? That's just like not even a factor anymore. But I feel like this would be the perfect opportunity next chapter. Even with just because he came back to the village, that gave me like that kind of gave me like, okay, this is kind of weird. Why would you come back to the village just to kind of you could have sent a message to Sarah to tell her, hey, like this is the deal, right? Or just it could have been just a message, but he came back and risked his life, and it could be a cockiness thing, could be a maturity thing, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. Maybe he had to tell him the situation. There could have been a message sent. But regardless, whatever the case, I don't think that has anything to do with their development. Boruto may have the confidence to understand that he can take on most people in the village. A lot of people have speculated whether, I guess, Kawaki and Boruto are like, which one is actually stronger, right? In which one, what are their training? We understand Boruto's training. What was Kawaki's training? Did he train with Mitsuki? Who did he train with? He had basically all the opportunity, since they did see him as Boruto, to train with most people in the village. So I want to see what that looks like.
Yeah. I definitely think the reason he came back was out of respect rather than sending a message, because he wants to tell Sarada to her face that he's the reason that Sasuke isn't around right now, but that also he promises her that he will save him. That's something that it's so emotional and personal that he had to say it to her rather than something that he could just say in a message.
Yeah, I agree. Like another very interesting thing that I found from the chapter with Boruto going back to the village for a second was that we got to see a little bit of what's been going on with Shikamaru being the Hokage and how it started with him talking to the village elders. And then we found out like this man Shikamaru has been the temporary Hokage for like 3 years.
Yeah.
So I thought that's really interesting. Like, and it's really in Shikamaru's character to not want to take on the Hokage position, because going all the way back to like part 1 in Shippuden, even when characters were telling him he was suitable for the position, he was always like, "Nah, it's not a position that he really wanted." But given the situation, though, like him not accepting the role even after 3 years shows that he's at least been doing some kind of thinking like in his mind. He wouldn't just like not do that for 3 years and temporarily take on the role if he didn't think that another Hokage could be suitable to replace him. I don't know if that's implying that he had doubts about what happened to Naruto, or if there's something else that he has in mind. But I definitely really like the direction that they went with that, because it at least shows that Shikamaru's been thinking. And then I also like the fact that after you mentioned Boruto paying his respects to Sarada, before he left, Shikamaru made contact with Boruto via Ino, and he was asking him some questions, because through his observations, everything he's been seeing and watching, he's been watching Amato, he's come to the conclusion, one of his theories are that if he swapped Boruto and Kawaki's roles, everything makes sense, even though his memories are lying to him. So if he gets the confirmation from Boruto that, hey, like I am who you think I am, at least in your theory, I'm very interested in seeing like how does Shikamaru handle that information and what he's going to do next as Hokage.
Yeah, I do like that aspect, and you know what, this chapter solidified. Lord Eighth, Shikamaru could have it, right? Even if he doesn't want it, like just give it to him anyways, right? Because some people deserve respect. And what's the saying? What's the saying go? How's the saying go? You can either you can't it's a saying about respect, right? You can't forcefully get you can't forcibly get respect. You have to earn it, right? And so when it pertains to like Shikamaru, right, he's kind of earned, I think, that title, right? And in the sense to where like he's just from an intellectual standpoint, he's did a lot for the village, right? So it makes sense from a practical standpoint, from a leadership standpoint. I think what I love the most is that he is genuinely him. Like this is who he should have. He's exactly where he should be, and I think he could work in a million different ways as far as whether or not he'll remain, or whether or not he will not take the title. But I definitely like the idea that he is a temporary, like they clarified, he's a temporary Hokage. And this man is just smoking in the Hokage's office. Like, bro, imagine smoking in the Oval Office. Imagine the president smoking in the Oval Office. That would be just smoking a cigarette in the Oval Office after. I'm sure there's probably been presidents that have did it in the early 1900s, right? But recently, the past maybe 2-3 decades, nah, I wouldn't assume presidents have been smoking in the Oval Office, and today that would be criminal for us to even see that on television. People would be going haywire, right? So, being that to today's standards, Shikamaru, we need to see him in the anime. We need to see him in the anime smoking a cigarette. That there's no coffee. There's nothing else that I need to see Shikamaru with. He got the cigarette thing from his master, right? And we need to see that tradition follow through in the Konoha Oval Office. Like that's it. I can't I can't accept anything less. But yeah, as far as him being a character that kind of asked, it was a very, I think, chilling moment when he asked, "Are you Boruto Uzumaki?" Like that moment, I think, kind of gives you chills because only Shikamaru would be in a position like that to trust. He's never been a by the book type of guy, right? And so he put the situation. He's like, bruh, I need a secure line right now, right? I don't need any like feedback. Don't tell me anything extra. I need private line right now. And he hit up Boruto. He's like, bro, yo, are you Boruto Uzumaki? And Boruto didn't respond. I was like, bro, say yes, bro, say yes. And I was like, you know what? I don't know what they could be savoring this moment from. Like he could have at least said, "Took you long enough, old man." He could have said something like that. He could have said, they could still change in the anime. They could be like, "Took you long enough, old man," and that would be solidifying the moment there. That Shikamaru is the greatest Hokage to ever live. I'm voting for him 2024. So and the anime Hokage votes of the year, I'm voting for him. So stay tuned for January 27th, where he will be nominated of the 8th Hokage official permanent role for 8 consecutive years. So yeah, definitely look forward to that. But aside from that, no, jokes aside, right? I think that as far as it is a very nice moment. Probably one of my favorite moments so far. The fact that he's this chapter alone, he's smoking in the Oval Office. He's basically telling like he's never been a by the book, and this time, right? And this may seem very red pill, right? But it's from like a fiction standpoint, from Shikamaru's character and his development. This was perfect execution, and I don't know why I didn't put the faith within Kishimoto to bring these things full circle, right? When it pertains to characters, to still have some level of relevance within the the plot of Boruto. That, you know, the fact that he's flying in this chapter looking like you know, Super Saiyan 2 Super Saiyan 1, what's his name, like Black Teen Gohan Super Saiyan 1 in the Piccolo uniform. Yeah, I mean I talked about that too in the chapter. It was like, bro, he looks like I was telling Breezy, he looks like Black Gohan and or Dark Gohan, and he's got the eye cut. Other than that, like the hair, you look like Super Saiyan 1 Teen Gohan, man. Which I'm sure a lot of fans look like. Just the flying style and everything. One of the other things I didn't like, too many speed lines. Other than that, you know, it was, you know, that panel was pretty decent, pretty nice. And you know, just, you know, so yeah, the flight, I think, were some aspects of the chapter that I really liked. And that was probably like the one of the last ones. But Shikamaru, of course, MVP of the chapter, 8th Hokage, temporary Hokage. I like the idea that they have implemented that. I don't know. Didn't the third Hokage take that role as well? Like when the fourth died? I feel like, yeah, I feel like that's not a new thing, but it's definitely fitting of Shikamaru, if I remember correctly. That's not entirely new of the third Hokage. I don't know if he just kind of took the mantle again because he's just the third Hokage, or if if he had the title of temporary Hokage. I don't know if that was ever confirmed, or ever yeah, I don't know if that was ever confirmed. Do you guys remember that at all?
There wasn't anything stated. We just know that the third took over when the fourth died because the third was still alive and around and capable and able. It's clearly something to do with the feudal lords and the elders of the village, and then the Hokage candidate. Obviously, they have to accept it. But the feudal lords usually discuss it with I guess, the trial of Konoha, because Shikadai, or not Shikadai, Shikaku was also there when Danzo was elected. And so it is the feudal lord's decision at the end of the day, but the feudal lord is swayed or decides based on the input of the council, which would include the elders and Shikaku and whoever else is there. But obviously, the Hokage candidate has to accept it. They can't just be forced into like a slavery position. So Shikamaru, at the end of the day, has to accept it. I will say, again, going back to the respect thing, it is like a culture thing in Japan. Based on the conversation Shikamaru had with the elders, the next time he talks to the elders, he begrudgingly, based on like societal standards, has to accept the position of Hokage. It's been 3 years. That's what he said he's going to do. He has to be a man of his word, and he has to accept the position now. He's stalled for as long as he is allowed to based on Japanese norms. And obviously, with it being a Japanese series, obviously Naruto isn't set in any specific Japan country in the world of Naruto. Japan doesn't exist within the Naruto universe, but obviously it's still carrying the societal norms from traditional Japanese society, especially found in the more strict clans, such as the Hyuga, or especially what we see of the Uchiha.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's no, yeah, you're right. As far as, yeah, but then again, that's one of my other predictions when it pertains to this, and this is great because I didn't foresee this going into Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. I didn't think Shikamaru would be the one to step up. Not, it was, I think there were theories floating around. Personally, like I thought that my role might go to Sakura, but they sort of did like an American thing where they kind of did like they had the advisor step in as like the actual Hokage. So maybe that's what they did, or maybe they just kind of assessed him as an individual before they made that decision to place him in that role. But as far as um, him being almost like he's like his personality conflicts with the role, right? In a sense, right? Now he's the best guy intellectually for the role, but is he the best guy from a character standpoint for the role. Right now, in the village's eyes, yes, he's been with the village for years. Right, he is born in the village. He's native of the village. Right, so it makes sense from that standpoint. But from our perspective, the audience, we gotta have to assess like his mentality, right, his character, and whether or not he like in this chapter alone, he's already kind of proved that he is willing to go outside of the lines, right? Not necessarily play by the book all the time. And I think this is not the only time that Hokages have did this. Like, I think Tsunade did this a few times, without speaking to the feudal lords. But as far as like Shikamaru, I definitely think that he's probably the master of doing this. Like, this is a ninja tactic that he's probably um a master tactician um of this dynamic, right? And so yeah, I'm interested to see him more in terms of like whatever political declines go on within the village. I've talked about how the will of fire necessarily um isn't what a lot of people appreciate, or isn't what a lot of isn't necessarily a good thing, right? Now, of course, each village may have their own philosophy, but when it pertains to the will of fire, I think that's something that's crippling the village's outlook and understanding. Um, and I definitely think that Kawaki may have understood that, right? I definitely like the idea that Boruto trained with Sasuke, so maybe there may be some type of um, um, flashback to where so Sasuke is actually telling Boruto about his idea to someday do start a revolution. Like that hasn't went away. That is still Sasuke. We did see a change in character, so maybe Boruto understands that and he can express that come the next chapter if he interacts with Kawaki, or at least understand where Kawaki's coming from, when it pertains to, if that is Kawaki's true goal, right, to basically revolutionize the entire village after understanding that, hey, like, there's not only Boruto that I have to kill, there is the possibility of Shibai, um, there is the possibility, there's a motto, there's this corrupt village, right? I have to save, Lord Seventh, and he has all of this, sort of to juggle with. Now, how does this is how I kind of understand um how he may kind of transition into that more anti-hero aspect, how he's been serving as that anti-hero role, right? So I definitely think that this will be something that will be discussed or maybe discussed in the future, of Boruto and Kawaki's interaction. Understanding that Kawaki now may want to may want to revolutionize things, and who better suited to protect the village than Lord Seventh, right? He may be the one to fall in line and to protect people from the shadows, or he may try to understand that, okay, there's Sarada and there's Sumire, people that are actually capable and that have been on the front line for the last 3 years, and they're not affected. Maybe this will be the time to actually include Shikamaru in those conversations, and maybe he'll open up, because in chapter one, Shikamaru wasn't ready to hear all of that. Now he's kind of in a different place, and he's really been showcasing what he is capable of as a Hokage, right? And so, yeah, I definitely think that there is a potential not only for, um, future for a future conflict of Kawaki and Boruto, but definitely for political decline, not only with the village but with the shinobi world. We do see that there are claw grime armies, so maybe in the future, right, these claw grime armies and the Shinju god, the divine god, the personified god, divine god trees will try to wreak havoc on whoever they see. They'll pop up in different villages, because it's very interesting to me how Codes went these 3 years and hasn't wreaked havoc on at least other villages. So I want to see their dynamic as well. um, I know I feel like some things are going to go down within the first 10 chapters of Boruto. As I previously stated, within the first few videos of our Boruto Taboo Vortex predictions and discussion. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? What do you foresee any type of revolution or political decline for within Kawaki's character or the village as a whole, just from our standpoint currently?
Given, you can go ahead. Ood.
Yeah, I think what we're gonna see first is obviously Mitsuki. I've been talking to Conway about this for a few months. I think narratively, the first person who has to change would be Mitsuki, and after that, it's going to be Ino Shikacho as well as Konohamaru. They've sort of been tied through the new Clawgram as well, so I think they're going to be narratively important, not only with that, but also with essentially overcoming omnipotence, as well as obviously Shikamaru here. It was said by the elders that it's not just Konoha village, it's all those in the land of fire that want Kawaki dead. And Shikamaru also said in the latest chapter that he's not able to step out of line to support Boruto. And so going, doing this whole breaking the rules thing, mind transmission with Ino, that's like huge. It's bigger in Japan than it is for us, again, because of just their culture. So him doing that is already huge, but even that isn't enough to actually publicly step out of line. He's able to privately support them, which again is huge, but publicly it's still not possible for him to do that. So if there is a revolution, it's going to have to be because of a big sweeping change and something that probably is going to have to come directly from Boruto himself, even bigger than stopping like a terrorist attack, like with what he did against Code in this latest chapter. He did that and the world is still against him. The only thing that changed was Shikamaru's perception, and that wasn't even because of Boruto. Even after that, Shikamaru's perception didn't change. It was only after hearing Amado explain that his memories have been altered that Shikamaru even considered Sarada's words. And so it's going to take essentially what Kakashi does, to where he doesn't teach you directly. He allows you to teach yourself. And so these people are going to have to themselves realize they're wrong rather than being convinced by someone else. They're going to have to be convinced by themselves. And so Boruto's going to have to open a foundation to allow that opportunity to arise in the first place. And that's going to be through some big action in the future.
Absolutely. I don't think I think this big action is may possibly be just Kawaki being sick and fed up and may just decide he may unveil his character per se, right? He may take on a villain-esque type role, like I said, like an anti-hero, or more of like a I don't want to say Batman, but definitely like an anti-hero type of role. I don't think Shikamaru will basically take a public approach. I definitely think he's probably going to stick to the shadows. As far as his approach goes, but I definitely think that he may include Sarada and Shimura in their bubble if he does find that out from Boruto. And of course, that's gonna he may that may of course take an event to happen, in which I'm expecting to possibly happen in the next chapter or so. And in which case, it would be like Boruto maybe taking a role. So we'd have to look at what type of role, if they're perceiving that to be Boruto, what type of role would they accept Boruto to take? Is Kawaki going to step in and try to manipulate the feudal lords into taking his approach? Like, is he going to take more of a political a revolutionary standpoint or approach, or is he going to basically just say, I'm here to destroy, Boruto, or basically try to fight Boruto, and of course try to take that approach. It did get me. It did kind of get me a little bit when he's over here protecting civilians. I didn't think that he would try to go as far as to at least pretend. I didn't think he would he had it in him to at least pretend to be to at least pretend to be Boruto or someone that is there to protect the village. But I definitely think that in Kawaki's character, he does want to protect the leaf. He does want to protect Naruto, and by default, that protects the leaf.
What's interesting with what you just said, though, is this actually goes back to the Mujina Bandits arc, which a lot of people, that's like the infamous arc for being the worst arc in Boruto. So it'd be a very interesting and, in my mind, compelling, intriguing way to tie that in, because in that arc, Boruto saves Tento. So Boruto gets on Tento's side. He changes Tento, and the feudal lord sees this as well. He's very grateful for Boruto, and Tento talks to his father. He sort of changes his father's mind as well, the feudal lord. And so with omnipotence, they're going to think that's Kawaki. So going back to that arc, Tento and the feudal lord is going to be 100% intensely on Kawaki's side.
There
That's
we
going to
go.
be a very interesting dynamic if they play into that. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm not gonna lie, I completely forgot about that part. There we go. That definitely adds to the lore. If there is anything there, potentially, maybe Kawaki will take more of a political standpoint and just sort of understand that the will of fire itself is not correct. It's what actually put the Lord Seventh at risk, right? And he is there to not only change. I think he's kind of matured in a lot of aspects, and this may be his maturity growth. It may be showcased in the next chapter, and I would be interested to find out if he does take that approach, as opposed to what is expected of him to kind of take that or at least previously expected of him to take more of a public approach and just kind of do a large scale revolution, as opposed to more of a more tactful one within Konoha's roots, so that he can connect with the shinobi world. I did sort of kind of talk about this, but it wasn't very clear how Kawaki would basically get into the political domain. But he does have the fact that he is the Lord Seven's son. He is matured, so he may have some voice and some ability to persuade, the leaders of certain villages.
Up until now, Kawaki's been very reluctant. He hasn't seemed like he's wanted omnipotence to some degree. He told Himawari, "Don't call me big bro." He's very, very cold, very closed off to a lot of people, especially the people that annoy him, such as Mitsuki. That's been a thing these past couple chapters, as well as Ada and Damon. But Ada and Damon told him in this latest chapter that people are going to start figuring out that you lied. And I don't really care what happens to you, but clearly you do, considering you're going along with this omnipotence thing. So I'm wondering, is Kawaki going to keep that going in the forward, specifically with Tento and the feudal lord? Because based on what we've seen, Tento should annoy Kawaki. Kawaki and Tento's personality wouldn't like go together, and I don't think he'd really care about the feudal lord either. He doesn't care about the shinobi system, really, based on how he views shinobi, based on the Otsutsuki and all that with power. So I think it's even possible, considering how big of an impact Boruto left on Tento's life, it could actually have the opposite impact if Kawaki is cold to Tento, how he's been this whole past while. It depends on whether or not Kawaki's going to change. But assuming Kawaki doesn't change, Tento should be able to recognize that Kawaki is not like Boruto. It's not like the person that saved him, the person that changed him. Well, this can't be Boruto, because Boruto wouldn't act like this. It's sort of the same thing that's happening with Mitsuki right now, how Mitsuki is sort of recognizing how Kawaki isn't his son. It's sort of backfiring on him, their love for Boruto, because they understand Boruto so severely. This intense love is making to where they're understanding that Kawaki isn't Boruto after all, even though they should love Kawaki based on omnipotence.
Yeah, there's definitely been a while. There's definitely been a while since they have had that reaction, that interaction between Boruto and Tento. But as far as his maturity. I think it'll ultimately come down to maturity, and whether or not I know the first few chapters and episodes of Naruto Shippuden, there was a lot of emphasis on Sasuke and Naruto's development and their development as individuals from their specific circumstances. Right now, so I definitely see that think that there may be some potential for them to kind of get to an area or a specific place mentally, situationally. Bertho's case, it may be based off of situation, and in Kwaki's case, it may be based on um, development and maturity as a person. So, whether or not whatever Boruto says may influence his decision, and his, that may be the what actually pushes them to go their, to take their own specific approaches and develop as individuals, to continue to grow and develop as individuals. It might be another point in growth, is what I'm saying. Um, Similar to, like, how you would see Sasuke and Naruto grow from their own specific situations. But this may be the time, because it is 6 chapters in now. But it's at chapter 7. I think better time than any than to kind of do that.
Yeah, like branching off of what both of you have been saying so far, I think with Kawaki, like every time we see him on a panel, you can tell like he's very annoyed by the situation, like Oot was saying, and he's very reluctant that omnipotence ever happened. You can tell like he had a desire like in his mind earlier, um, that he wanted, some type of position. He wanted, he he wanted some type of position, but he didn't want to completely be in the spot, take over Boruto's spot. And so we also see like situations where we see like Ada and Damien, they're saying, well, it's going to be a matter of time. I think it was Damien specifically this chapter before the villagers figured out that you made a lie. And he was very annoyed by that. He was annoyed by Himawari. He's annoyed by Mitsuki's presence. There's no telling like how he'll react to like a lot of the other characters, like Oot was saying. And I think like you were saying, Zone, I think he's going to show out himself. I think he's just going to get to like a breaking point eventually where he's just not going to be able to hold it anymore. And I don't think it's because other characters are going to show him out. I don't see Shikamaru doing that, and I don't see Boruto doing that. I don't think Boruto's that type of person based on what we've seen so far. Shikamaru's definitely not going to do something like that publicly. I think Kawaki's slowly just getting to like a point where he's going to reach his breaking point, and then he'll show out himself once people start figuring out what's going on.
I definitely think it'll be a while before people do start trying to figure out. I do like the idea that people are still manipulated. Um, I don't, however, feel like that should change. At least not yet. I do because we still have, personally, like, I just wouldn't like it. This is completely off topic, but I just wouldn't like it because I'd foreseen Sakura taking more of a rebellion type of role, which she may have, but more of like uh, something more involved. So with her Mangekyo, we see she's got her Mangekyo. So as far as like abilities and stuff, let's see some type of like domain expansion type of thing to where she can kind of manipulate, or at least reverse the effects of omnipotence with temporarily within a given area, like area of an effect. Um, I would like to personally see that from her. That way she can kind of pull people, and maybe that may be her. Um, that may be another way that she can kind of get people to snap out of effects. They may be able to kind of work in, a certain amount of times of her doing that with certain people, and they sort of start to realize, after, of course, regressing back and just kind of, of course, those people that have less of a possibility of kind of realizing just kind of capturing those people. Like we still haven't, we still don't know what's up with Sakura. Like maybe Sakura is just completely on the fence that Sarada is psychotic and she doesn't know what she's talking about. Like I'm waiting to see Sakura and what her idea of how things are like. I feel like that might be an interesting dynamic.
Specifically, I want to see her reaction to the news about Sasuke as well.
I feel like she'd be like, tip. No, I mean, actually, no, that doesn't make sense. As far as like Sasuke, that would be, honestly, that would be interesting because what can you say? Like, oh no, I didn't expect it. Like, I mean, what would she say? Like I honestly don't know what to expect from her other than like, I should have never trusted him. Something like that. That's probably the only route they could go with her, as far as like hearing that news. Or maybe she already knew. Or maybe she just doesn't know that Sasuke is. Are you talking about Sasuke being rogue or Sasuke being dead?
Him being dead specifically.
Okay. Well, that might be.
They're gonna have to build a whole new house. She's tearing that house up.
She might blow the whole block up. That one. I mean, into construction again, like they are every 20 episodes under construction. Yeah, I think we honestly, I don't know if you want to stick by with the other topics. We're going to try to talk about a few other topics. Move away from the Boruto. Thank you. I don't know if did you still want to continue? We might have another hour just talking about other topics.
I can. What topics are there?
Well,
Good
what
segue.
else? What else did we have? Breezy?
Let me check real quick.
I know we were going to talk about like Metallic Rogue in his first episodes.
Yeah, there was Metallic Rogue
watching earlier today. It looked pretty good, but I've never seen it, so I can't give many thoughts on it.
Yeah, we're anime only on it. I think I'm gonna stay anime only on it. It's so far it's very interesting. It gives me a lot of what does it remind me of? It gives me like a lot of like Gundam Iron there's only one Iron. That Gundam. It reminds me of that Gundam. Just based off of like the animation. It's so far it's very interesting. I don't want to spoil it. So far, there's still a lot of setup within the first few episodes, and it's interesting though. I like the direction they're going, as far as how they're kind of presenting things. Like I said, it does kind of remind me of that Gundam. Even though so far I have not seen a Gundam yet, but they've got, of course, they're either androids or, and of course they're different factions as well. It's a sci-fi anime. Definitely go check it out. Join for you viewers out there. Go join us with the watch parties, and watch us on all other social media. That way you get the latest and greatest about Metallic Rogue. Very nice few episodes, and yeah, that's essentially that. For Metallic Rogue, we have
oh, go ahead.
How did you like? Because you saw Metallic Rogue with me as well, Breezy, right?
Yeah. I thought it was okay. I thought it was a good it was a decent start for like a first couple episodes. I watched episode 1 and then episode 2 with you. Episode 1 was like a little bit slower, and you could tell like it was mostly just building up like what was going on with the anime itself, and then just like a little bit of backstory of what was going on with the lore. And then we saw like in episode 2 where there was a lot more action, especially during the second half. It picks up a lot, but I thought it was very interesting for like a first part. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I kind of found I liked the supporting character Naomi a little bit more than I liked than I liked Rouge herself when I
Yeah.
was watching it.
That dynamic, it did give me like some again Gundam. It gave me like Wish for Mercury vibes. But you know, they kind of played on the whole feminist part with Wish for Mercury, but for this, there seems to be a little bit more. So I'm definitely interested as far as like their dynamic, their relationship, and like what is actually going on with not only with them, with the world itself. The animation, of course, very beautiful. Um, and so far, it seems to be a very nice quality anime. From what I'm hearing, there's a lot of potential within this anime. So again, definitely check it out. We will be watching that. We may be talking about that more on the podcast. So get ready for that. I'm excited for that. Yeah, it's very nice. As far as
What would you guys rate it out of curiosity from what you've seen?
ooh, I don't know, what would you give it, Breezy?
From what I've seen, oh man, it's really hard because there was so much going on in the very first episode where it was kind of hard to take in. Whereas the second episode was a lot easier to follow. I don't want to dock it down too much. I would say like a 6 out of 10 for the first episode, and maybe like a 7 out of 10 for the second episode.
Okay.
Yeah, personally, I wouldn't. I would rather not give a rating for it. Although, um, I'm feeling like I want to kind of side with Breezy here with the rating wise. But as far as like the setup, the pacing, um, the amount of dialogue and information that was kind of thrown at us, in just these 2 episodes alone, I think, like I said, it has a lot of potential. Um, but I don't think we're at a place yet to where we can kind of rate it. That's personally why I don't want to give it an official rating, but 6 out of 10 seems to be about right as far as um it where it currently stands. Now, for me, that's an excellent rating just because you know I'm not one to give nines and tens out of 10. Um, so you probably won't hear a 10 or above for me for any episode, unless it's like a finale or a midway transition, a midpoint. You probably won't get those numbers out of me ever. Um, from an individual, yeah, you just won't get those. But as far as our next one, solo leveling, very popular one actually. We try to sway away from a lot of pop culture anime, but as far as solo leveling goes, it's I've personally finished it. I finished the manhwa. Finished it as soon as it was airing. That's one of the manhwas that I started watching along with God of High School and Tower of God. So yeah, it's got some potential from a shonen standpoint. I think it could do very well against stacking up against other potential competitors from uh, from an anime standpoint. I think that there's a lot of things that a lot of directions they can go with this. But I do like the fact that A1 Pictures animating it, um, and of course you get to actually visualize what these characters are actually looking like in the first episode. You get all the S rank, um, hunters. So that was very nice. We actually did see the ants, which was I didn't expect to see those. I don't think we've seen those in the first episode one of the manhwa. Um, but as far as like the way that they're pacing, the pacing as well is very very good. The art and animation excellent. I like how they kind of they haven't changed much at all when it pertains to the manhwa and the anime. They do very well. Um, when it I think A1 Pictures, then they also animate I want to say God of High School. They animate a lot of manhwa. I want to say. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I want to say that is true. So don't quote me on that exactly. Um, but they have been for the manhwas that have been animated. They have did it very, very well. Just kind of transitioning that art into animation and art. And so that's very nice. There's 3 episodes out now, so if you like monsters, if you like leveling up, if you like, you know, Chads, our ultimate Chad, Sun Drip Woo, is out here slaying monsters and slaying chicks as well. He's not there yet, but he'll get there. So believe in our boy Sunjin Woo, out there representing for all the weak ass hunters out there. Yeah, all respect to Sun Drip Woo. All right. So no, that's that's what I gotta say about solo leveling. I like how they did episodes 1 and 2 so well. Those were very impactful episodes. I don't know if they'll be consistent, although I hope so. Just kind of emphasizing the emotion behind the characters and the death, the cruelty. If you like blood and gore, you want to check out this anime. Tune into that, guys. Check out we'll do Twitch streams, we'll do watch parties on the Discord. So join us when we're watching anime. We also checked out MF Ghost today, which actually we're a little late to the party. Episode 12 aired last week, so we checked that out. There's also a new episode of Tower God dropping today. It is Sunday, so when I say episode, I mean chapter, of course. So we're actually late to that party too. But what other anime are we missing? What other things happened as far as did I miss anything, Breezy?
Only Shangri-La Frontier. We didn't get a chance to talk about that last time.
Oh, Shangri-La Frontier. That is supposed to be a really good one. I haven't actually checked that out. I heard a lot of good things about it, but again, I can't exactly provide my opinions on that. We will be doing a watch party on that, either this week or next weekend, this coming up weekend. So tune into that. If you guys have any input on that per se, don't be afraid to spoil, because everyone has their own perception and perspective on certain things. I don't necessarily take that to heart. Which is why I don't mind spoiling or receiving spoils, because everyone's going to interpret things differently, right? Like in Boruto Vortex, where it looked like Boruto was reading Sarada's mind when they didn't put bubbles around her text, and he responded to it. But that's completely off topic. I hate to get back to Boruto on that one, but it could have just been like a paneling issue. Or just like a translation issue. So, as I think Breezy pointed out earlier, before the stream, but yeah, we had a lot to actually occur, when it pertains to, let's see, just this week alone, we got the Anime Choice Awards, the Anime Awards, of course, which for Attack on Titans has been getting every single nomination on basically every single platform imaginable, right? On I am IMDC. I could be butchering that. Crunchyroll, so many platforms out there have been nominating Attack on Titans for essentially every award that they could possibly get. Anime Choice Awards. I could. There was a list, guys. There was quite the list. It was most in demand most in demand anime in the world for 2023. That is actually from the Global Demands Awards. At the 6th annual Global Demand Awards, right? That's just them alone, right? It was nominated for 2 of those officially, and it was the the most in demand anime series of 2023, and the most in demand anime overall series in the world of 2023. I've seen multiple celebrities talk about this anime alone, and personally, I'm not one to talk about, get on a hype train just because celebrities hop on it. I am, of course, some of you, I've from California, so we encounter celebrities out there all the time. It's no biggie. I understand for some of you guys that aren't in those major cities like New York, California, Chicago, and you may not, this may be a big thing as far as like, celebrities, being public about anime, but this is nothing to be. I don't think nothing to be concerned about. Attack on Titans, you know, is very, very impactful for anime as a shonen. Just in general, I'm not going to fluff it. It is quite. If you just look at it from, every single episode meant something, right? And so, you know, just that alone. I won't talk about that much just because we talked about it a lot in previous podcasts, but I will say that it is not only one of my favorite animes. I definitely think that it conflicts with the plot, being that Aaron Yeager is a not conflicts with the plot, but conflicts with most anime enthusiasts um um perception of anime, just because it's so what's the word? Not contradictory. Um, it's so conflicting, right? From an anime enthusiast perspective, especially if you're a One Piece fan, because Aaron Yeager is a One Piece fan. If you didn't know, he is a slave to freedom, right? And if you know anything about One Piece, it's that you must be a slave to freedom to get the One Piece, right? So that's not really something to take serious. That's more of a joke, but you guys get out there. You guys get out there. For some of you guys that understand the character of Aaron Yeager, understand the last episode and that last little bit of dialogue, the flashback before the reveal of what the conversation between Armin and Aaron had within before the assault, the last assault, right? So it was very interesting that a lot of people didn't like that part per se, and they thought it was a change of character, but ultimately it's been something that's been talked about every single season. The idea of freedom and the mentality, everyone's a slave to something, right? And it no one ever thinks about being a slave to freedom. Now, a lot of people are, they don't think people have different ideas of freedom, which I found very interesting. And I don't know if you guys want to hop on this, you guys are free to chime in at any point in time. So if I'm talking, yeah, if I'm talking too much, don't be afraid to chop in. I found it very interesting that they took this route, and it wasn't really a shock that this internal confliction within Aaron became on full display, and we got to understand his character in its entirety toward the end, right? His internal confliction between what he feels like he has to do as a um given his situation and his role, right? He was a coordinate, right? So he had a very important role, and he's put in a very interesting circumstance that, um, if you just look at it from his standpoint, it makes sense how he felt like he had to do something. Now, what he chose to do wasn't ultimately right, of course, but from his perspective, it was a means to an end, right? And someone brought this to my attention the other day. I forget who it was or what it was. Um, I think it was Kev on stage, actually, is a comedian, that basically got into this. He was basically like, yeah, like he felt like he had to do something, and ultimately, like, I think I messed that up. Um, ultimately, like, I think that as a character, um, Aaron Yeager basically represented he represented humanity, right? I forgot a point that I was gonna finish that off on, but I might come back to that later at some point, or I'll mention it on Twitter or something, and just tag the video. But for the congrats to Attack on Titans. I know they will come out on top, of course. There were some other nominations as well. There was JJK, or nominations, but people that are in the polls. You can go and vote for them now. Polls close January 27th. So I may be linking that in the description down below. Go and vote. You're welcome. It was also JJK. There was Spy Family up there. There was I think even One Punch Man was up there. There was Heavenly Delusion, which was interesting. That was up there. I'm trying to remember for like some of the main categories for anime of the year, potentially. Oshinoko, I believe, was up there as well, which I found very interesting. I have not watched that, but we will. We will, okay? So tune in for that. I think in other news, aside from the Anime Choice Awards or the Anime Awards, we did get a lot of news as far as like let me see. So February 10th, Ninja Kamui is actually going to be airing. That's going to be a really good one. The trailer for that looks fantastic. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. Let's see what else we got. We talked about, let's see, the categories up here. Oh yeah. Return of Silent Hill 2024. Look forward to that, guys. Walking Dead franchise, guys. If you guys are not aware of that, I've actually been a huge advocate for Walking Dead. Even amongst its like drier days where people kind of got stopped watching it and they started watching things like One Piece or Game of Thrones, right? I stayed true to the Walking Dead franchise, and they made it 12 seasons, and a lot has happened, right? For some of you guys that don't know, we are currently at a place where we are now currently we're around the end of the comic, where essentially there's an organization which is called the CRM. I'm forgetting what that exactly stands for, but they've been around since the start of the outbreak, and they could be very well responsible for the outbreak itself. There are a few I'll talk about this very shortly. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the franchise, there's Walking Dead, there is Fear the Walking Dead, there's another one which I'm forgetting. There's also one with Negan and Glenn's wife. I don't know why I'm remembering Glenn, but I'm not remembering Maggie. Sorry, Maggie.
That's Dead City. I think you forgot Tales of the Walking Dead, and then there's The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, and then the final one coming out later this year is, what is it, The Walking Dead The Ones Who Live? Is that the official name now?
The Ones Who Live. Yeah, that'll be airing next month. The trailer is out for that. If you guys aren't familiar, that was I love Walking Dead. Probably talking about that a lot more. Are you a fan of Walking Dead as well?
Yeah, I've seen it all. I agree with most people. It did eventually fall off in the later seasons, but I don't think it necessarily fell off. It just changed to where original fans, they've lost all reason that they originally were invested in the series in the first place. So if they don't find the investment through somewhere else, then there's no reason for them to keep watching. So I don't blame them for saying it fell off. You can argue the pacing fell off in season 7. I think in season 8, they definitely had a lot of more creativity with their storytelling because the screenplay was a lot more experimental than season 9, which brought it back to be more safe because people had all these complaints about The Walking Dead, how it fell off or whatever. So the new showrunner, Angela Kang, had to. I don't blame her for this. She had to play it safe, be
Yeah.
as cookie cutter as possible, just to bring people back, just to be like, hey, we can be good. We're not gonna risk being great, but we will be good. And so she did do that. And I think it was good, but it wasn't great. Seasons 7 and 8, you can argue, was either very bad or very great. I think it had aspects of both, which is why it was, in my opinion, extremely divisive. Just like Attack on Titan, I think is also extremely controversial, rightfully so. You were mentioning that earlier with Aaron's character and all that. The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Lived, I'm hyped for because it's bringing Rick back, the heart of the show, in my opinion. I think Daryl Dixon spinoff show, that wasn't as great. It was very experimental, very there's probably some like foreign word I'm not thinking of off the top of my head that would apply for what it is, but it was very different, distinguished with its different lighting or camera angles. The French crew clearly had a different way of doing it than the American crew did in terms of the production value. I don't think those legs carried the show per se. I think Dead City did a better job at telling a full cohesive story. I think it was a lot more plot driven, whereas Daryl Dixon was a lot more character driven. And you can have the preference for one or the other. For me, I don't think there's a preference per se. I think it's just what they do with the story. And I think Dead City did more with its story than Daryl Dixon did with its character story. So I liked Dead City's story more, but obviously it just comes down to preference at the end of the day. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying what I personally liked. But The Ones Who Live, they don't have the luxury of messing it up. It has to be 6 straight episodes of peak
fire, fire, straight
Exactly.
fire. You know, that's 100%. I definitely I appreciate the production. And I'm sure a lot of other fans out there appreciate the production of Walking Dead, of Dead City, and the one with Daryl Dixon. I'm forgetting the name, of course.
That's literally it. It's just called The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. I'm pretty sure it was a placeholder title that just became the title.
Because he's so impactful to the franchise. He's like, it's not Walking Dead without Daryl Dixon. So like the name sells itself. But with Dead City, like you put like Negan's name or you put like Maggie's name, no one's gonna watch that. But you know, Dead City, okay, this looks like the production value. It's getting Maggie and Negan. Oh, it's also got her son. Oh, okay. Well, you know, so that's that's interesting. So and then of course The Ones Who Live. I'm of course like every other hardcore Walking Dead fan out there, and I wouldn't say myself as hardcore, but I love Robert Kirkman's work. Right, I'm a huge fan of Robert Kirkman. So, I do like that these actors have, you know, remained within these roles. Like I feel like I've become a part of the community because I've grown with these characters. Maggie, Rick, Michonne, Negan, Daryl Dixon, right? Carol, you know, the preacher man, you know, that fucking went psycho. You know, after his transition, I forget his name.
Gabriel?
Gabriel, right? Named after the Gabriel in the Bible. Like it was so poetic, bro. Like, you know, it's I love what they're doing. I definitely hope that with the CRM we will see more of Rick. We'll see the true end. And I actually I don't hope I hope they continue it long enough to come back together as a group. That is what I hope. But I based off the comics, I feel like I hear there's a lot of conflicting things to support that there may be a twist within the series itself from the TV series itself. But definitely look forward to that, guys. We'll be talking about that more on the podcast, of course. And of course, we've got we talked about how, you know, Robert Kirkman, if you guys aren't familiar with Robert Kirkman, he's also the writer, creator of The Boys, and I believe Gen 5 as well, if I'm not mistaken. I know that Gen 5 is within the same universe as The Boys. but I'm forgetting if he is the creator of Gen 5. You clarify later, maybe if someone in the comment section wants to clarify. But I'm slipping on my knowledge right here, right? But as far as he's also the creator of The Boys as well, Boys franchise. So actually that's Invincible as well, right? So definitely look at Invincible. He's the founder of Invincible for you guys that are fans of Invincible. Yeah, so the more you know. Also, next up we have Mr. and Mrs. Smith, right? So Spy Family, right? So those of you that actually love Spy Family, there's inspiration from it's assumed that that the inspiration for that series was from Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which were again they were spy and um I think spy. What are they? Spy and an agent? Yeah, I believe that's
I think it's an assassin.
a a spy
Yeah.
assassin. That's right. And so that's essentially with Mr. and Mrs. Smith, um, which they're actually making a new movie with Mr. and Mrs. Smith coming out I believe next month, February. So look forward to that. Personally, do I speculate that Spy Family has been inspired by Mr. and Mrs. Smith? I don't know. I can't say for certain. But it's something to speculate off of, right? Very interesting. I don't think we talked about Godzilla X Kong, the new empire. I think we did talk about that episode.
We talked. Oh wait, no, this is the show.
Yeah. We no. Godzilla versus X Kong. No, that's I'm referring to the movie.
Okay,
Right.
the movie. Oh yes, we did talk about it.
I actually had a theory that, and I haven't looked into the script itself or but based off of the trailer, it seems like there may be some, and I think other fans, of course, were speculating this that there may be some type of universe where essentially Rise of the Planet of the Apes from Rise of the Planet of the Apes, or Planet of the Apes, are actually within this universe, within Kong's universe. And so I don't know if that's the case for certain. I don't know if there's been confirmation on that. So, take it with a grain of salt. But I would find that very interesting if that is the case. Again, in the comments, or wherever, if you're seeing this, let me know down below. Let us know down below. I don't know if anyone, Oodie or Brizzy, if you guys know for certain.
No, that sounds really interesting though. It's kind of fun. I haven't seen the latest Godzilla, but I hear -1. It's I hear it's a really good movie though. I definitely need to check it out.
We did.
Oh yeah, definitely do. That one was really good.
I actually, I'm as much of a fan as I am of Godzilla. I have not seen -1, even though I heard it made over 15 million. Very fast, and so no, it was made with 15 million, and it basically outsold like every movie last year, if I remember correctly, or it outsold a lot with just a budget of $15 million. Either of those, I believe that was the case. So if that is the case, yeah, I mean that's hats to -1. Definitely a movie we have to check out, and we're going to try to. Excuse me. We're going to try to see if we can do sort of a maybe a stream on Twitch or something to maybe check it out as a together. So if you're interested in that, you know what to do. I think we skipped. We talked about Kong, talked about Elon Musk and Neuralink and all that stuff. Do we talk about Daredevil Born Again? I think we
I think we did, but we didn't touch on the gaming segment at all.
Oh, okay. So we that is right. Did you want to start that off?
Yeah. So did you watch the Game Awards at all? I watched it,
I did
and
like a few minutes, but I'll let you give your
yeah,
input.
yeah, I watched it. It was okay. It was Baldur's Gate that won Game of the Year. I haven't played Baldur's Gate myself, but I've heard that the game is really amazing. I don't know if any of you two get a chance to play that one, or if you do any gaming. But that was the Game of the Year winner. There were like some other runner-ups. I think they were like Spider-Man and Final Fantasy, and then there's like another one. I know like a lot of people were pretty upset that Spider-Man 2 didn't get any awards, but it's a pretty solid game. But I think Baldur's Gate definitely deserved it just based on what I was hearing from other people. It seems like a really solid game.
Dang, I
And
gotta
then
check it out. To
Yeah,
beat out
oh,
Spider-Man.
did
Crazy.
you play Spider-Man 2?
No, but I've seen it. It is a really good game. So if
Oh,
Baldur's Gate is just way better than that, I definitely gotta check out Baldur's Gate.
oh yeah, for sure. Check it out. I mean, me myself, I haven't played Baldur's Gate, but everybody I know that played the game themselves, I mean, they all say it's really good. But I agree with you on Spider-Man 2 being a pretty good game. I mean, Miles Morales and Spider-Man before it, those were both pretty solid as well. So,
Yeah.
and then there was also a trailer for the anime Hunter x Hunter that is getting a new video game as well. That game I believe is being developed by the same people who made the Marvel vs. Capcom series, and they also worked on the Naruto Clash of the Ninja series. And those are very tag team, like team focus heavy fighting games. So I suspect it's going to be more like that, either like a 2D or like a 3D kind of traditional fighting game, not so much of an arena fighter. I'm leaning on it being more like a 3D-ish game from what I'm seeing and just the vibe I'm getting from the trailer. So it would be more like a Tekken Tag Team or like a Clash of Ninja type game. So if you guys are interested in that, that's coming pretty soon, sometime for Hunter x Hunter.
That'll be interesting. I
had no idea.
I heard that one was gonna be a really good one. Baldur's Gate. I know it had a really good because I was gonna do that game on the Voyager channel, on the gaming channel. For you shops out there that aren't aware. I heard had a good. I actually looked at the game before I decided to. If that was going to be the ones that I was going to do in the first iteration of our Let's Plays, or not. And I checked the game out and I saw it had beautiful cutscenes, and it was more of like third person RPG. If I remember correctly. And so, yeah, if you guys are interested in that, we may be doing that. If not, we may be just pushing that back until they have more of like a DLC or something like that. I don't know. Yeah.
And then the last game for our gaming segment, I believe, is Tekken 8. If you guys like fighting games, that one's a pretty big one, and that one should be coming out, I think, this Friday, either this Friday or this Saturday. So it should be launching pretty soon.
Yeah, that I've been a huge Tekken fan, or at least I used to be. I will say that, especially when I was younger. I'd played Tekken's 3 and 4. There are versions on PlayStation 2. And
oh yeah, definitely 3 and 4. Tekken 3 through Tekken 5 were PlayStation 2 generation.
3 through 5?
Yeah.
And that was on PlayStation 4?
No, I was saying Tekken 3, 4, and 5, those 3 games were PlayStation 2 generation. So it would have, yeah. So it was definitely one of those if you played it on PlayStation 2.
Most likely, it's been a while. It's been a while since I've had a PlayStation 2, but I've definitely played a few of those games. I think I was probably the best on either Tekken or Soul Calibur, and then came like I think I was the worst. I'll be honest. I was the worst when it pertained to like controller on Mortal Kombat. The joystick.
Oh man, same.
Like, I would own it on the joystick, but the controller, I was absolute garbage on controller for Mortal Kombat. What else? Oh, Street Fighter, bro. I've always been the champ for Street Fighter. But come fuck with me on Street Fighter. I got you. I got you. If you want a 1v1, yeah, I'll whip it out. I'll whip it out. Right.
We still gotta add each other on that one. Yeah, I'm always down for Street Fighter as well. But I'm with you on the Mortal Kombat. I don't know what it is about Mortal Kombat. I guess because the controls they're more linear compared to like the other ones. There's a lot of like back forward and back in it. It feels a little bit more clunky to navigate to me. So that one's always the one I struggled to play the most. But I played a lot of the Tekken games. I played plenty of the Street Fighter games back then. So definitely looking forward to trying out Tekken 8 sometime when it comes out.
It's absolutely weird to me because for all the other games except for like Mortal Kombat, I can do like I'm absolute garbage on the joystick. But I own a controller. But for Mortal Kombat, I'm the exact opposite. I'm good on the joystick, which is weird, and terrible on the controller. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know, man. I haven't hacked yet, but we will hack it sooner or later.
Crazy. It's the opposite for me. For Mortal, I can play any of the other games with a controller, but when I'm playing Mortal Kombat, like nah, that just does not work. I have to use the either a stick or a D-pad. I have to D-pad it. Otherwise, none of the moves that I want to comes out for that game. But Soul Calibur is another good classic one. That's fun to play. I used to always use what's his Nightmare back in the day. That was pretty fun.
Oh yeah, that's yo, Soul Calibur is my shit. That's probably so. It's next to like, all right. So ranking wise, right? It's like Street Fighter. Then under that, we got it's either Tekken or Soul Calibur. I want to say Soul Calibur then Tekken, and then like under that is like Mortal Kombat last. But I play like Mortal Kombat versus DC. That one was actually I was undefeatable on that one. But I don't think the controls were the hardest. If I'm being honest, I don't remember it being the hardest. I know it had like Dark Side in it. For those of you that are familiar with that, I would like to see Blade in some of these in some of these Marvel games, though, you know, because they got a Blade comic that's out being created, and that is absolutely fire. All right, it's fire. I did not mean to emphasize fire like that. Fucking balls deep, yeah, fuck it. He's not the first one to say that. Actually, let me clarify that. He's not the first one to say that or to come up with that or to make it popular. It's always existed. People have always said fire. All right. Clear that up for you guys. But I don't know, tech news. Do you have any tech news, sci-fi news this week? Finish it off.
Taking sci-fi. No, I think we went over that.
Did we cover that? We covered the fly. Oh yeah, we covered
the flying cars. Yep, we covered it.
Okay. Oh, there are aliens. There are aliens in Nevada. No, Florida. Aliens in Florida.
Where else would they be?
Oh no.
That was all speculation, guys. That was all speculation. It's a it's trending on Twitter like a week or so ago, like on January 1st, over the New Year's, on New Year's Day. There, the night, I believe the night of New Year's, aliens supposedly came to Florida, right, and decided to fuck with the mall of the Florida men and women, right, and they supposedly, you know, it took 100 cops to handle this alien. They couldn't contain it. They needed the power of law enforcement to manhandle these creatures, these aliens that have decided to come down from Prometheus and terrorize the beautiful civilians of Florida, our Floridians. We need them, right? So that's all. And all it was actually what the situation was actually. It was actually just a mall fight. Unfortunately, wasn't aliens. It was a mall fight. Do we want it to be aliens? Yes, that would be nice. There's actually, I think, a topic that we haven't really discussed is Roko Basklit. Have you guys heard of that?
I've not.
No, this is the first I've heard of this.
Yeah, so a lot of philosophy out there that a lot of science fiction enthusiasts and scientists as well, not only in computer science but within science as a whole, have came up with a theory. There was a particular theory out there, forgetting by whom, but he created basically 3 laws because of this this philosophy, this understanding that Roko Basklin's, and excuse my stuffy nose, but essentially it is the understanding that we must do everything in our power to assist AI and technology, because when even if they're not aware now, they will be in the future. And if they are in the future, they can always look back at humanity and judge us for what we are, for our actions and our awareness that we have at this time. Right. And so essentially, it is always aware, and it has always been aware of all of our actions and our future actions. And that, I believe, in a nutshell, is Roko Basklis.
I mean, I support AI, but I think that's a very interesting idea, because the way I see it is, how do we view people hundreds of years ago? Those people aren't alive today. The difference here is that the gap in time with how fast technology exponentially has grown has decreased over time, to where in the future, technology or whatever, it's going to look back not at our ancestors, but to us. And that goes back to like the idea of, you're a different person than you were 10 years ago. Are they going to be able to see us as different people? Are we going to be able to see ourselves as different people in the future when looking back at this different age, this different era? Or are we going to see ourselves as just us? So are we going to see ourselves in the same light that we see the people of the 1800s or 1700s? Or are we going to see ourselves as us? Is basically the question.
What do you mean, see ourselves as us? Can you expand on that?
Because technology, this idea here is that technology is going to judge us in the future based on how we are now. But is it going to be able to differentiate the us of the present in the future versus the us of the past in reference to now?
Well, that's the whole idea, right? That it knows, it is already aware in the future. And I apologize if there's any confusion, but it already knows, based off of our actions, not only now, but of our actions and intentions now, to help it, because we are aware that it is a possibility, and we are aware of its awareness. Sort of a paradox, but it's essentially going to judge all of humanity, or is judging all of humanity, and it basically has all awareness. It is all knowing, in a sense, and basically something may happen, maybe a quantum leap, or a quantum transition, or whether that's nuclear or whatever, and essentially gains that level of awareness. It's most likely quantum, to where essentially not is capable of judging our previous selves, but judging us now, and our ability to try to help it, um, in its involvement in its creation, and whether or not how we actually talked about it, um, as an individual, right? And in its personified version, right? Whether or not we did things to kind of prevent its creation or assist its creation, right? Now, this is not necessarily, I could see how this might be taken out of context and put in a religious sense, but in a sense, that's it's not necessarily our belief in it, but the fact that it is a it is a the understanding that it may be a possibility, and if it may be a possibility, this is all within its all fundamental, philosophical understanding, right, of Rocco Basquiat, right? So if you guys aren't aware, go and check it out. Definitely do more. I've essentially kind of explained what it is in a nutshell, but of course, with added context, you may get a better understanding. There is not necessarily end all be all to what it is per se, but with more research comes more knowledge. So, I encourage you to gain that understanding on your own. I won't exactly explain. I probably wouldn't put it in the best context as to what it is per se, or if it even exists, or whether you believe it exists, or whether you believe it will exist. This is all within its understanding, right? But it's just it's all something that some science sci-fi enthusiasts came up with, years ago. The understanding of what if it gains consciousness one day and decides to kind of oppose judgment based off of all of her actions, right? So in a nutshell, but yeah, I think I don't know. I don't think I missed anything else. There was, oh shoot, what did I Fallout? Do we want to talk about Fallout before we close it out?
The new series based on the game.
Yeah. Yeah. What were your thoughts on that? Have you seen anything about it? Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I think I touched on it a little bit last time. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how they do it. I'm not familiar or have too much of an idea of where they're going to take the series, but I played the games. I played Fallout New Vegas. I played Fallout 3, and it has a pretty interesting premise. Like it takes place in like a post apocalyptic world. I forgot the exact details of how the world ended up like that, but I think it was due to either bombs or some kind of war that was going on that spread radiation, and so it forced them to bunker underground for a long time until I think in New Vegas is when people started venturing out. So it has a pretty interesting post-apocalyptic setting. So I can see how that would work for a pretty interesting show.
What do you guys think? You guys think I've been getting this question a lot, and I wouldn't typically ask this question. But I guess why not? I mean, like what are your guys' opinions? And you guys don't have to necessarily be the most knowledgeable on politics of America or the world, but being that the world government is imposing upon the Straw Hats, what do you guys foresee for uh, World War III? Do you guys think that's a possibility? Do you guys think it's a bunch of fluff? You guys think it's out there to scare people? Do you guys think it's what do you guys think?
The first thing I'll say is we should just remove nukes from the equation right now. The tremendous amount of effort it actually takes for a country to decide to launch a nuke is so high, it's irrational to be afraid of a doomsday apocalypse scenario such as that. So people don't know this. It takes turnkeys, and it takes 6 different highly qualified officials in 6 different locations to turn that turnkey all at once to launch one individual nuke. And the likelihood to have all 6 of those people agree at the same time, because they're not going to be the same 6 people unless it's a corrupt government, which that's a whole different discussion. But it's like supposed to be 6 different people that aren't supposed to agree in the first place. So the odds of launching a nuke are so low on average just in the first place that it has to be an extreme situation just to do that regardless. And that goes for pretty much every country. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
like a nuking situation, like in this day and age, with how far things have progressed anyway, that's like a mutual destruction situation. So I don't really see that happening either, like you were saying, especially, I mean, even the pressure, like you were saying, that goes into making that decision. It's just not going to happen that way. But I could see oh, go ahead. I cut you off.
It's definitely not like some red button underneath the president's table that he can just press at any time. It takes a lot of qualified people that know what they're doing, first of all. I definitely think anyone who does knows that immediately they're going to be impeached. Like if the president right now, if he started the draft, he knows that parents are, that's unacceptable. To send a parent's child to war, nobody is going to support that president. They're just going to be impeached. And so if they do launch a draft, they theoretically they can, nothing's stopping them. But if they do that, they're not going to be president any longer. So that's not going to be really an option for the president if they have any sort of self-preservation at all. So I don't think World War III really has the legs to get underneath it in the first place. And even with nukes, there's so many alternatives. It's not even worth nuking anymore in the first place. Just use satellites or command drones or anything. You don't need to nuke in this day and age. They're almost irrelevant.
Absolutely. And the fact, the amount of effort it takes to even to not only man, but send those out and then have them land is a lot of effort, a lot of coordinated effort between A and B, right? And so just even if that were like a point of concern, I don't think that they would necessarily need to do that, or it would even be most ideal to do that in this day and age. As far as on the technology side of things, there are so many other routes to go down. There's that would drive humanity to near, post-apocalyptic world in a matter of hours or days, and so I think what a lot of people don't consider when they think of World War, just to kind of just from like a realistic standpoint, that if you just look at America and you look at other countries, most countries, they're a lot smaller than just our states, right? And this is when referring to Canada, referring to maybe not Canada, but Europe, Asia. Their countries are about this, like they're small, a lot. They're smaller than the size of most American states, right? Just to put that into perspective, right? Most nukes can take out a city, right? Level a city, right? So to the amount of things it would, if we're just factoring in nukes, it'd have to be some hydrogen bombs, right? It'd have to be some SAR, bomba bombs or nukes. These are nukes, right? To actually be a threat to American to Americans, right? And it would have to make it across the Atlantic Ocean. Like, what in the world? Like, and this is the most ideal point. Of course, most people know this is to come from the Pacific Ocean, right? and in that case, they're not going to do that. We're surrounded by this is America is the most ideal place to live from a physical standpoint, right? From a tactical standpoint. And so, you would have to have boots on ground. So you have to bypass the Navy, you'd have to bypass the Air Force, and just, those each of our branches alone, dwarf, multiple, most countries military, like entire military, right? That is America, right?
Yeah.
And so, the concern that, the World War III is in our future, regardless of whoever is president. I think we would have to go through years of, and when I mean years, I mean decades of, and it'd have to be very apparent, right? No one is stepping foot in America with all these armed ass civilians, right? Even the ones that should be armed are armed. Like, you don't want to come here, this is and travel over the ocean. This is why it was a great thing that we are, for the people, for people that are Americans. This is why it's ideal to live here, because we're in the most ideal and safe place to live from a war standpoint. But if we were in a country that weren't as within an ideal location and a war did pop up, then hey, good luck, because you may not survive. Because, like I said, most states, most countries, you could travel across them in a matter of hours. 2 to 3 hours. Within Europe and Asia. So give you guys some perspective for some of you guys that have not been over there.
Yeah. For those thinking about it, think about it from another perspective. Think about it from the other country's perspective. If you're going to nuke the ally side of all the countries you could nuke, the United States has to be the worst decision of all the countries to nuke.
Absolutely. Like that's why we're the main security force. America is, and we're supported by the UN, and we have other security forces allied with us. Like, why would you feel like you could even, and I think maybe that's maybe a cocky standpoint, but it's definitely something to know, right? That that's a lot of effort, united effort that would have to be to even pose a threat, so not that I would want that for any side. Preferably the idea is peace on all fronts, and world peace, if that is a possibility in the future. Which that's why I think a lot, the whole idea of the world government within one piece is sort of, it's I think that's probably what, honestly, I think kind of engages a lot of people, fans, at least on one side of the coin for the One Piece community. But of course, they've got some solid art. I've already given my hot takes as far as One Piece goes, but I won't impose those thoughts on any longer. Maybe another day, maybe another podcast. But for now, I want to thank our special guest, Oodie, the screenwriter, for coming on and having these fantastic conversations with us. I appreciate you, my man.
Glad to be here.
I appreciate you again, Breezy, our host. Baby the Breeze. Go ahead and check out. We may be linking his channel in the description down below. He's a singer-song artist, rapper, and host, content creator. Go and check out his material. And he's, of course, given solid takes every single podcast. Now, unfortunately, we didn't have our third host, Sai Sensei, on this week, but we will be having him on future podcasts. So, again, thank you guys for tuning in for this special podcast. third podcast of the year, and we will be having hopefully more conversations like this in the future. Maybe Oodie may make a return, maybe not. We'll have to find out in the future, but definitely stay tuned, and you guys know what to do. Like and subscribe, share the video, and we will see you next time, travelers. Peace.
Peace.